Yours doesn't have the finger thing?
It does, but then it always like makes it too big. Or what it does, it goes off to the side.
We had 2 minutes. I will wait. A minute and a half. A lot of stuff, a lot of papers. A lot of papers.
Like she needs any more. Hey, Corey needs to make an appointment to clear my schedule. Sorry, hold on.
No stragglers out there. You guys all ready? You guys ready over there? All right, today is Tuesday, November 7th, 2023. It is 6:30. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Trustee Zazzaro. Trustee Hartz.
Here.
Trustee Moreland.
Here.
Trustee Thomas. Trustee Wolf.
Here.
Trustee Ah.
Here.
And Mayor Tarkenton.
Here. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Does the board have any conflicts of interest to announce at this time?
Maybe.
Okay, you want to
Um,
discuss that?
On 6B, I worked for one of the people. Does that disqualify me on where the easement's going?
You benefit
You
from
work
it?
for one of the people in what capacity? As a,
Well, nothing to do, well,
anything to do with this? You gonna benefit from it financially,
from the easement?
from this decision that you guys are about to make?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I guess it could potentially. I don't know.
So did you already survey the land? Or are you going to be hired to?
I just did some topo work for them for their school buildings.
Yeah, but it's not clear to you that you're gonna derive anything from any sort of decision that we may make today.
I guess it's a possibility, I don't know. I guess, I'll just leave the room.
Yeah, in the interest of just making sure everything is clear, I think we will still have a quorum. So it should work out just fine.
Okay,
Thanks so much.
Okay. Noted.
yes, 6B.
Okay. Get you a little chair out in the lounge out there. All right, we'll move on to general public input. If any members of the audience would like to address the board not pertaining to any items on the agenda, please feel free to step forward, state your name and address for the record. All right. Did everybody get a chance to look at the agenda?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Hartz.
Yes.
Trustee Moreland.
Yes.
Trustee Wolf.
Yes.
Trustee Ah.
Yay.
And Mayor Tarkenton.
Yes. All right, at this time, I will pause the regular meeting and open up the 2024 budget public hearing. Keep in mind, we do have some staff presentations and discussion, and then I will open it up for public input. So, Katie, do you want to get that started?
So I do have Kathy, our finance director, on the list first.
Kathy.
Yes. Good evening. So tonight's public hearing puts us one step closer to approving a budget for 2024. By state statute, we are required to publicly notice this hearing, and make available the proposed budget to the public. This public hearing was noticed in the Durango Herald on October 18th, 2023. A copy of the proposed budget was filed with Town Clerk Dustin Hayden on October 15th, 2023, and it was also presented to the Board of Trustees at a meeting on October 17th, 2023. So we are in compliance with state statute with this public hearing. Once a budget is approved and monies appropriated to the individual funds, it's my job to make sure that those dollars are spent responsibly and that they are spent responsibly and as they are intended to be spent. We currently have a two-step process before invoices are paid. The department director reviews the invoice and codes it with the general ledger account the funds are to be paid from. The invoice is then passed to Town Manager Sickles for her review and approval. The invoice then comes to me. At that point, the invoice is entered into our financial software for payment. When entering these invoices, I confirm that the invoices have been coded correctly and that the expense is within budget. So that's just a few steps of how I monitor our spending. We also have a controlled process for how our dollars are spent. I'm responsible for tracking the incoming revenue. This is done by monthly monitoring of the financial statements, verifying the income received for water, sewer, trash, I&I, et cetera, for the utility bills. I manage the town's grants, submit the reimbursement requests, and verify that those funds are received and credited appropriately. I also do the billing for funds when funds are due to the town for things such as lease agreements, like the county has a lease agreement for their space in the front of our office building. I also oversee the land use project deposits and bill developers when appropriate. I work with Community Development Director Killian to ensure that no project is given final approval while still owing the town for debts that they have incurred. And so that's just a few examples of how I monitor our income and our expenditures. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions from the board? All right, Katie, you're up.
So I have a couple highlights regarding the 2024 budget. The town does have a ballot issue that is being decided tonight. This budget does not include any increase in sales tax or that 1%. Tonight is also Proposition HH. This budget looks at the possibility that Proposition HH passes. So that would be a reduction of about $34,337 for property tax. So in May 2nd, you adopted a stormwater ordinance, and so those fees will be determined at the time the feasibility study is done, and it goes through the public hearing for any rate changes, based on the residential or commercial property. And this budget has went through quite a few work sessions. So our first work session was Tuesday, July 25th at 6 p.m. And we've had a couple of work sessions since then, including our last one, which was October 3rd, which was our last work session on this budget. So in this, the personnel, labor, and expenditures, we have no COLA in this budget, but we do have a merit which is currently 0 to 5% depending on available funds. Para, FPPA, death and disability have increased percentages, and unemployment remains at 2%. The town sought quotes for health insurance with the number one goal to realign the insurance term for 13 months, and I just signed that agreement last week, so we do have a 13-month health insurance. That'll give us a little more time, so it will expire December 31st of 2024 instead of November 30th. So that'll give us a little more time to get the employees involved. Uniform allowances will remain at $500 per assigned employee that, when their job basically ruins the clothing that they purchase. So in the FTEs, we had some changes in our Parks and Recreation. Now, we divided some of those duties because after we've lost 2 Parks and Rec directors in the last basically year in July. So we now call it Parks and Trails, Culture, Resources and Recreation, and Senior Services. So we do have a professional level finance director and human resource director positions to comply with the state and federal regulations. We continue with facilities and grounds. Joe Shivelshaya just gave me his resignation yesterday, so he is resigning. Most of it's because of location and personal reasons, and he says he just can't wait till the day he can come back to Bayfield. So we did remove a sergeant FTE position, so in other words, we have 1 less officer in our police department. We will consider a stormwater maintenance worker with those specific duties in the time we actually have the feasibility study and the public hearing on those rates. We would like to transition the temporary receptionist to part-time and recruit a full-time park maintenance worker and remove the seasonal park maintenance workers, which we've had from time to time. So we try to hire them seasonal. We've really struggled to get even seasonal workers, including high school kids, to come to work for the town. And then we removed the part-time code enforcement officer as well. Typically, you've reviewed your community partnerships and nonprofits prior to this budget being considered, but because there was a lot of uncertainty about things, we decided that we would wait until after this public hearing. So the number 1 goal for the Board of Trustees is water conservation and rethink town hall turf and map out a water-wise plan. And we do have the Sonoran Institute that provided technical assistance for growing water-wise. Housing is number 2 priority. And then number 2 is to retrain and recruit adequate staffing, including the SRO working and retention incentives for employees. The rest of them, including implement the Joe Stevenson Park, was a big one. We spent a lot of time on that, updating that master plan. There is a capital improvements list in your proposed budget, and from there, I'm just going to go into the general fund. So we do have an organizational chart. This is still a draft organizational chart for the Board of Trustees in consideration of adopting this budget. So the general fund is basically where we receive the 1% sales tax that we currently have in the general fund. We receive all of the La Plata County share of sales tax, which also goes into the general fund. And then we also have transfers to the general fund for basically managing the enterprise funds as revenue. Each of those different operations, administration, the police department, parks and trails, resources and rec, and senior center are all broken out a little bit separately. Before, it used to be administration, police department, and parks and recreation. But now we've broken it into 5 operations within the general fund. So some of the major, like I said, this does not include an additional 1% for parks, for the park development. So we just look at the possible grants. We could possibly get a grant from GOCO to do the Joe Stevenson Park. And then looking at business licenses and some of the other fees that we receive from the general fund, we increase them some. We know that we're getting far enough away from the pandemic that we're having kids sign up for soccer and basketball and all the recreational sports that we have currently. There is an elections next year, so there is an additional amount in there for 5 elected officials. That would be 1 mayor and 4 trustees, 3 for a 4-year term and 1 for a 2-year term. And just as I was getting ready we've looked at computer hardware and software. I just got another surprise that some of our computer hardware will go up again. We did add another computer to Parks shop building. From my understanding, that will also increase some of our IT coverage as well. So unless you have any questions, I will pass the next bit on to our police chief.
I have a couple questions. So the breakout of the Parks and Rec, Resources and Recreation, and the Senior Center, those, when we're looking through this budget, we need to look at all those numbers together.
They
to-
were in your budget together, some of your previous drafts. It is not in this budget. I would be
Okay.
happy to provide that page, but that was in all the drafts that we had up to this time. And I highlighted that at every work session and meeting that we had.
Okay, can we get it, is it possible to get it split out this year? Because we're gonna be looking at it next year, and this year we have things that are gonna affect, like we put 20,000, 30,000 into the senior center renovation. So that's gonna impact our numbers for next year. Things like that.
So if it's a capital improvement, it does not go into operations.
Okay,
And that was a capital improvement.
okay, that was a bad example. So just on these pages that we don't have anything, where did it go? The split up between the 3 of them.
I'll be happy to send you that document if you would like it. It's not necessarily part of the budget because it was just a comparison. I'll be happy to send you that page. I could probably pull it up right now.
I don't think that's exactly, so just like here, okay, in resources and rec, we only have a budget for 2024. Is there some way to reflect what we had in this budget and split it out into each section of what we're breaking out?
So the park shop and the senior center utilities are all tied together. We would basically have to go expense by expense to break it out and to determine what was what. So in other words, you want 2022 and 2023 as it would look like?
23, to compare it to 24.
Yeah, we have to go expense by expense, because keep in mind, there was only one director for that, so, in the past.
That's too much work.
Yeah. That was part of that, that's why we're saying we've now split those duties, but before it was all grouped in together.
You've split the whole budget. The whole budget's been split between these 3. So what we had in Parks and Rec is now split with Parks and Rec, Resources and Rec, and Seniors, if I'm reading it right.
That's correct.
Okay, so that means next year, we have budgeted 10 additional phones just for this department.
10 phones.
Additional phone stipends, like, for example, that's just one, one budget line item.
I'm not aware that we've budgeted 10 additional phones.
Well, if you look at resources and rec, there's a cell phone stipend of $240. So each one costs us $600 a year, so that's 4. And then if you look over here on the Parks and Rec, you also have a cell phone stipend for another $2,400. So is that and then you have another cell phone stipend for the senior center.
That's correct.
So all 3 of those together, 9 phones for next year. So that's what I'm saying, like that one item, breaking it out, can help us see, like these other items in here, can help us see what we might need to cut. Because we were looking at a lot of cuts in Parks and Recs and seniors this year. And I think it'll just be easier to evaluate what we're doing next year if we have an idea of what we actually split up. Because that right there tells you, we have 9 phones. We need 9 phones in Parks and Rec and Resources and Rec and seniors.
You've got 9 people.
They all need phones?
If you would like to have a cell phone stipend policy for allowance, we can certainly change that. In fact, those are all being looked at. The leadership team is going to look at those tomorrow. And then if you decide you don't want a cell phone stipend or a different a way to manage that, that's certainly your call.
Because right now, we will provide them with a phone, or if they choose to use their own phone, we give them a stipend to help pay for that. These guys are out in the field, they gotta be able to answer the phone.
The
So-
senior center?
I mean, does Carrie, well,
Yes.
does Carrie have a phone?
Yes.
And you need 9 phones to run
There's
Parks and Recs?
People
8?
opted into, I mean, every employee here can get a cell phone.
Okay,
or
so we got a little
stipend.
distracted because what I was asking for was the breakdown. That, to me, just bringing attention to that one line, I noticed, we're spending $13,000 in cell phone stipends. It seems a little excessive for the town. Those are 2 things. So the breakdown is a no. The other question I had, the $500 clothing allowance, how many times do we give that out and how many employees and how
So
often?
it is Parks and Trails, it is the police department, and it's Public Works. So if we require certain uniforms, boots, safety,
OSHA certified.
clothes that they're going to destroy. Now, we don't just give them $500. They have to be purchasing actual work clothes.
And how often do they get it?
Well, they get it based on their director's determination that their, pants have been oil stained or whatever.
Okay,
$500 limit, right?
Oh, yeah, that's $500 limit, and not many employees get to
person.
that.
per person.
And not very, I mean,
No matter what.
not everybody uses that.
So
and
everybody's gonna
that's-
get-
And that comes out of that line, the personal relations line? Does that come out of that line? or
No.
What line does that come out of?
That comes out of U-C allowance.
In, U.C allowance
Your dash.
or dash?
So it's kind of towards the,
Parks and Rec, which one should I look at?
well, you can look at any one that with labor on it. And if you go almost, I want to say, 2/5 of the way down, you'll see it, U-C allowance. Would you like me to point it out to you?
Hang on, not police. Parks and Rec,
Right above the cell phone stipend.
thank you. Oh, sorry, up there, okay, okay. What was the other question I had? That's it for now. Thank you.
Didn't we at one point talk about phones too, that they needed more mobile phones than stationary phones, and that was part of the reason we had so many?
Well,
Seem
and
to
also we
recall a
required them
conversation
to
about that.
log on to their time card.
That too, and it's hard
Yeah.
to do because they don't have computers and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay. So, are we ready to move on to Chief Ogay?
Good evening, Mayor and Board of Trustees. Reference to the general funds that are noted on the 2024 budget. We have additional costs for the academy training. We just got done with a background and all the psychological and testing for our candidate. He passed everything we found out today, and we're getting ready to offer him a conditional offer. So we're going to be able to put him through the academy. I met with town manager Katie earlier today. I've done interviews for 20 years in several different departments. This young man was outstanding. So we are going to get a good one. And I'm very happy to say that. And we are still looking for one more, but we now they have to be post-certified, so we don't have to do another academy when we're trying to get everybody out. Operational costs, if we go down, Spillman is about to be implemented. It was a system that was purchased a year or so ago. We are just now getting it all integrated through Durango Dispatch. He was here today. We started working on some of it in-house. They're ready to do a test fully encrypted next week, and that'll now allow us to be on the same platform as Durango PD and La Plata County for dispatch services. Lexipol was purchased in 2013. It was put in play by Brandon Tisher in March of this year. I had to pull it all out and redo the whole entire manual because it was not up to federal and state laws. I informed Katie last week that the Lexipol policy manual is now in full play and up to state and federal laws. So we're fully in compliance with that. I met with Durango Dispatch. We had a meeting last month, and we worked on the billing. It should stay the same for every quarter next year, and they also discussed putting a cap on the smaller agencies, so that would be us. It would never increase by more than 3% in a year. So they're getting ready to implement that as well. The IGA with the La Plata County Sheriff's Office for manpower, I talked to the undersheriff today. It is in their attorney's hands again to correct some of the things that needed to be addressed for our agreement name and all the information on that. And I asked to have it so we can present it for the next board meeting. The other thing I wanted to note is that earlier in the month of October, I was able to renegotiate with utility to convert. They only do service agreements for body-worn and in-car cameras, and that was going to cause a problem for me with the budget. We are now the only agency in North America that uses utility as a purchase agreement. So we were able to move all that over into the capital improvements and take it away from the operational side.
Good job.
That concludes me.
Any questions from the board?
What's the benefit of that,
Of
moving it to the capital?
the town
We have money
manager
in
explained to me,
capital.
we have some,
Oh,
we
oh,
have
that's the only benefit. Okay.
benefits a lot of
It helps that
things.
Yeah,
general
you
fund.
have a 1% sales tax you collect in your capital improvement fund. You can only spend it on capital improvements based on the voters,
Correction.
the ballot. And that's where you have funds, but you don't have funds in operations as much as you do for
Right,
capital.
so that's why we moved it over there.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Mark is not here.
So I do have Mark's, his comment was, most of the general fund expenditures for parks is self-explanatory, salary, vehicle, fuel, et cetera. Supplies are our most utilized account. It covers everything from lawn fertilizer to toilet paper for bathrooms. Any material needed for parks and trails is expended in supplies. Operational costs are for equipment rentals, tools, porta potty rentals, anything needed to maintain the parks and provide the public with normal, essential accommodations. Some of the professional consulting services needed are gopher mitigation, tree trimming removal, and turf soil sample testing. These are just a few examples of the parks and trails expenses. The only revenue they have is park rentals. And so he said if you had any questions on the analysis, I could answer those on the revenue side.
Any questions on that? All right, move this on to Dustin.
All right, in the recreation part of it, most of the money comes out of the programs line item. Just a quick snapshot. So budgeted 75,000 next year. Snapshot of this year to date, we're only sitting at 45,000. So we have 2 months left to go. We are only rolling out one more sport before the turn of the calendar year. So we're coming in well under budget. So I'm very confident next year we can come in under budget as well with that programs. Only thing I'm really seeing is some of our revenue forecasts are pretty high and lofty, but I feel like with adding DJ on board, he's great with social media. The kids are coming out again. I think we can hit the mark. The youth sports revenue projections at $40,000. Currently, we're at $28,300 on that. As far as adults go, we're almost hitting the revenue projection for next year already this year. So we're trending ahead in that. We're also trending ahead on facility rentals and special events. We've already surpassed next year's revenue not expenditure, but forecast on that. So yeah, only run real lofty revenue goal, and the budget I think is going to be real easy to work with. We've really streamlined our process in paying the bills for recreation. It all lands on my desk basically. So I look at all the bills, I do all the coding, I make sure there's no extraneous stuff going around there. We do have a capital improvement this year that I'm going to hopefully present to the board next meeting for the reversible reusable jerseys, which will also make us more budget sustainable. We probably spend every youth sport, the big ones like soccer, about $2,000 on t-shirt purchases. So just in one season alone, that program will pay for itself.
Any questions for Dustin on that? We'll move back to Katie for general fund for the senior center.
Yes, so Carrie asked me if it would be okay if I just took this piece of it. So the senior center, we've been open 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. That will continue. And Carrie has just done a great job of organizing the senior center. I think the capital improvements, separating the commercial kitchen off, I think will be good. We did have a commercial rental the end of October, the 1st of November. And so we're seeing, especially the rentals pick up come this holiday season as well, and winter. So we're hoping to get a better picture of those rentals. I think we have a better staff process set up so that we can actually have a better system of what's getting rented where. I think Dustin's got a really good idea of basically that cost benefit as well. So anyway, everything will be kind of as it is if the sales tax fails. And if anybody would like this yellow sheet, I'd be happy to email it to them. I'm going to email it to the board, the leadership team, and our town attorney. This is the sheet that basically combined all of those two, the three together into 2023 and 2024.
Yeah, you guys want that? We'll just get it
Yeah, that's
to everybody. All right, any questions on that? Nicole?
So I'll just give a brief overview of what I do when it comes to the budget, and then talk about conservation trust fund. In community development planning and building, oversee all land use applications, and so we do collect a fee for that as well as a deposit. And we use that deposit to pay for any attorney's fees that we need as part of that process in the review, and any engineering fees that we need for those projects. And then whatever is not used of that deposit is returned back to the applicant. If the deposit goes over, or if the fees go over what was deposited, then as Kathy had mentioned earlier, we do bill them for that difference. We don't finalize their approval until they have a zero balance in that account. And then similar with building permits, I process all building permits and certificate of occupancies. I oversee our building inspector and our plumbing and mechanical inspector for the town. And so I do make sure that they get paid for the work that they do for us, as well as work with our front staff to collect all building permit fees for building permit projects. And we do require a deposit for building permit fees again, and then that counts it towards their building permit application fee. So say their fee is $5,000 and they pay a $500 deposit, then they only owe us $4,500 before they pick up their permit. So that's, and then of course I use software and things like that, but that's kind of where my the grants for the town as well, and help oversee those revenues that come into the town. In terms of the Conservation Trust Fund, this is our fund that we receive from the lottery funds. And we are going to be using this fund to help hopefully cover any match we need for grant funding for the Joe Stevenson Park master plan. And so that's what this fund is for. You want me to do all three of mine, or do you want me to
We'll,
come back to you?
we'll come back to Corey and Jeremy, I'm sure, chomping at the bit there. Sewer fund.
Can't wait.
Waited all night for it.
Mayor, town trustees. Yeah, so just a brief overview of the sewer fund. I'd like to touch on the personnel relations versus the uniform allowances in this. So typically in all the funds, we have personnel relations and a separate uniform allowance that goes in there. Personnel relations is basically for your random drug testing, your CDL, those operational costs that the town pays for when they get pulled from the clearinghouse for a random. Everybody does, that's in the clearinghouse, they'll have to go in quarterly. We get random selections. Sometimes it's 2 people, sometimes it's 1 person. We don't ever know. So that's what that personnel relations line item is for that testing. The uniform allowance, you'll notice in the sewer, the water, and the street funds, different employees are paid out of different funds. That's the way we've allocated those salaries. And so those uniform funds allow our employees to be able to purchase the appropriate safety equipment that they need to perform their job. So for instance, a pair of work boots like this is $250. If you buy 2 pairs of jeans at $70 a piece, you're already $400. So that $500 isn't really a huge expense for the town to be able to make sure that we have our employees outfitted in a professional manner and operating in the way that we want to support the town. Moving on, you'll see there's a building and facility line item in there, and there's also a supply line item in the sewer fund. The building and facility maintenance is basically what we use to purchase equipment. That would be pumps, drives, hardware, anything physically tangible that we need to replace or repair within the treatment facility. The supply line items, those are for our chemicals. So that's for basically our polymer for dewatering, our chlorine, any of those other treatment chemicals that we use throughout the year to manage the treatment facilities. There's also 2 electrical line items that you'll see in wastewater as well. There's an electrical option 1 and electrical option 2. Now, we don't just pick which electrical option we would like to use. The 1 and the 2 is just an easy way to define it. The number 1 is for the actual facility itself. So that's our power cost to operate the treatment facility at 1200 East South Street, or East Street, I guess is where it is, at the end of the road where the park's going. So that's the physical treatment facility. The electric option 2 is for all of our lift stations. So we've separated those costs out so we can compare those and hopefully come up, with a comparable estimate from year to year, which we've been pretty close. What else can I think of in there that might be a question? There is our sludge removal has gone up. You'll see that. So we're now being charged by the ton from Republic Services for the removal of our pressed biosolids. So you'll see that probably went up from the 23 to 24. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Jeremy?
What is the transfer to equipment and transfer to housing? I know the transfer to equipment, I think we were retiring that
Yeah, that was the
account.
vehicle replacement fund
Okay,
that they had, and they were transferring a dollar amount to a vehicle replacement fund. I think the thought process behind that was if the water and the sewer can contribute, if we lost a large piece of equipment, say one of the big snowplows or a backhoe, or something that there would be dollars in there. It's never been used,
And it's not in 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's no money in it, it just, okay. Oh, so it's never been used, so that's why we're
Yes, it has been
transferring.
used. It
Okay.
has been used, but not in 2024
Got it.
for the transfer to housing and equipment replacement.
Okay.
And what's the transfer to housing for?
Are you referring to 2023?
Yes,
Okay, so that actually was not transferred to housing. That was actually transferred to the general fund. We paid off the general fund. The Board of Trustees approved that resolution. And then it just happens to have in this case, it was the same number for either housing or general fund. So you may remember that instead of paying the housing fund, we paid off the general fund. This is in 2023.
So what are we paying off there?
It was the decommissioning, the general fund loan money to the sewer fund to decommission the sewer lagoons.
Okay, got it. Yes, and that's the other thing I was gonna say. The $500 clothing allowance, boots, I am 100% before. But when an employee is talking to me about getting that allowance and having slippery boots on and telling me he doesn't need boots and he got jeans and t-shirts instead, that's why I question it.
Yeah.
And boots, like, priority.
And there are some places that do things differently. They give you a boot allowance or things like that. Just, that's how we've been operating for that uniform allowance. And we do make sure they're safety toes. They're not ski boots, you know.
Yeah.
So those invoices are turned in and vetted through the finance department, as Kathy said earlier.
Cool, thank you.
All right, on to stormwater. Katie?
So stormwater, there is just fees of just an estimate, and it's a really rough estimate, of $500,000. A loan for $571,000, and then a grant for $571,000. But you'll probably be adopting a supplement for this fund because there's a lot of things we don't know until the engineer's done with the feasibility study. So in the expenditures, you just see $100 all the way down in operations and only one maintenance worker in there. And again, we will not finalize this until that feasibility study is done and a public hearing has been had.
What is there a need for having $3,000 of overtime budgeted with the one employee?
So it was just an estimate of overtime. We do have these employees can be on call, and then they can be called out for stormwater. So just like the storm event we had in 2022, we had a staff out that all day and that next morning managing stormwater.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Nicole, back to you.
Yes, so capital improvement fund. And so this fund includes capitals that would be considered under the general fund. So the admin, which would be any technology we have here or in our buildings, facilities and grounds, police, parks and trails, culture and recreation. And then Jeremy's funds, because they're separate funds, have their own capital projects within those. And so right now, the biggest capital would be Joe Stevenson Park, if we move forward with Joe Stevenson Park. And as I mentioned, we have a match, we're gonna ask for some grant funding. We'd have a match requirement from our capital. And then the other capital is all spelled out on page 13. If you have any specific questions, I can answer that for you. And it just, again, goes to the total general fund capital, which if you take out Joe Stevenson Park, it's $377,900.
Are there any questions there? We'll move on to the water fund. Is that you, Corey?
How'd you know?
Tag team, you guys tag team it.
Good evening. The water fund, pretty much like the sewer fund, you'll see two electrical line items in there. One for the water plant, one for the Carroll Beach and the booster pump station. Some line items have gone down on cost, others have gone up, our supply has gone up. Go figure. We did miss one thing in the capital improvement projects. We have 8 meters left to remove from underneath the houses. So we would like to add 40,000 into the capital improvement project, but we can also push it off to 2025. We just like to get it done.
Yeah, you guys been working on that for a while.
We have 8 left.
8.
And if you guys have any questions on anything that stands out.
Does the board have any questions?
I do. We don't have very much fuel budgeted for this year. 2023, we budgeted 6,000 and we only used 1,800, and we have 3,000 budgeted for next year. I just wondered what the discrepancy was, or why it's such a swing.
The big discrepancy with that is our fuel cards are tied to what funds are coming out of. So the majority of fuel being charged just to people that are coming out of the water fund, even though they're operating the jet water, which should come out of the sewer fund. So with that works, we've been able to track
And
fuel
sep-
usage
Got it.
on each equipment.
Yep,
Working with Kathy, she'll give me the electric board, and
yeah,
I tell her which fund it should be coming out of.
okay. Let me check and see if that was the, we had one programs. Oh, that was the street fund, never mind. Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope.
Thank you. Okay, we're on to our garbage fund.
So for the garbage fund, you have a contract with now what we call Republic Services. That was WCA, it's now it then was GFL, now it's Republic Services. It's residential garbage pickup, and then we charge just a little bit extra on top of the fee that Republic Services charges for basically cover admin time. And of course, then there's a expenditure in garbage that goes to the general fund to cover the staff at the front counter. And believe me, on Thursdays, that phone can ring off the wall for garbage issues, pickup issues.
How long are we in that contract?
It actually ends next year. And so I'm already reaching out to other waste companies to see if we can get somebody interested in garbage pickup in Bayfield.
Okay.
So I'm reading that right, we're working at a deficit on that budget.
Yes, so right now we take out the utility relief fund. That actually comes directly out of this garbage fund. There's no reason to have
Okay.
a bunch of cash reserves in this fund. So you had a lot of cash reserves in this fund, and we're just using those back. It goes back to your utility providers that are eligible for LEAP.
Okay.
Any other questions? We're on to our street fund.
So, the big thing I guess to point out in the street fund is, you're gonna see vehicle and equipment maintenance have quite a lot larger line item in there. That's because we have more equipment for maintaining, backhoes, snow plows and things like that. And then, there's also during snow removal season, if we do get a good winter, we do a lot of repairs. The programs line item in there, is where most of our snow removal and snow removal equipment come from. So you'll see in the 2023, in there that a lot of those funds haven't been expended yet. So right now is the season where we're buying snow chains, plow blades, all those things, and then those will be expended usually typically towards the end of the year. You'll see a lot of those expenditures come out from Halloween through probably Thanksgiving, roughly, depending on what that is. And then that'll carry us into the budget reset for the rest of the snow season, going through February and March. A lot of the street funds capital improvements, you'll see there's quite a few road improvements, and we're actually proposing a reconstruction project for Tamarack, and hopefully add alternate of Los Pinos Drive. We'll see what that pricing comes at. But there is a $500,000 capital improvement versus the $300,000 we were doing every other year. That's because we haven't done a reconstruction project since 2018. So 2019, we had one in, COVID kind of hit, and then everything went on the back burner. So we're hoping to use some of those restricted funds this year and do a little bit larger repaving project moving forward and fix some more of our streets here. I got questions, but I got a question license.
I'm looking for one. You answered the programs one. Okay, but when Kathy and I were reviewing it, it had C and J gravel, basin co-op and swag, but that makes sense now.
Yeah, so
That makes
CJ
sense.
Gravel's where we're getting our road base and
Right,
that stuff through.
right.
You'll probably see a desert mountain in there when you were, so we ended up doing some cold patch repairs this year. It's the first year that we've done it. We had really poor luck getting hot asphalt or contractors come out and do some of our smaller road patching. So we did it in-house this year. You'll see some builder rentals invoices in there. That's where we got the rollers, compactors, and equipment, and then also the mill machine. So I think that was a successful pilot that we did this year, and we'll probably continue doing some of those smaller projects in-house moving forward.
Okay. Okay, I'll give you a question. Insurance. I think it's probably, oh, no, I got that one answered. I don't have one, sorry.
Thank you.
All right. Nicole, we're back to you.
Yes, so housing fund. So this is the fund that was created to help with the Cinnamon Heights project. We are paying for the engineering and architecture this year, and also we have to do a phase 1 environmental. We also received $2 million in grant funding for this project, and we're hoping in the next couple days we'll hear that we have $700,000 secured to complete the infrastructure piece of it. And then the next phase will be to go out after an RFP for a development partner. And ultimately, we'll sell the properties to that development partner, pay for the infrastructure so that they can deed restrict those units, and then we'll get the money back from the purchase price of the lots, to possibly use for some other housing projects in the future. And then the other thing that we hope to get some revenue for this project on would be the Prop 123 money. So we can tap into some of that and help with other projects and infrastructure. And then we're gonna be the pass-through for hopefully $3.8 million for the Pine River Commons project. We're hopefully gonna be applying for their infrastructure. It's for their project, but the town has to be the applicant, so the state would grant it to the town, and then we would pass it through to the developer, and again, for the 60/60. So using this account, for those purposes, you'll see it, money coming in and going back out to that developer.
Any questions about the Housing Development Fund? We'll move on to additional budget items.
So we have software, it's called Rec Desk. What it does is parents can sign their kids up, and adults as well, for athletics, the youth and adult. And I didn't know that was going to be coming in, but it's $3,800 a year. Also, if you're in this room, there's Wi-Fi. That's $303 from my understanding from DataSafe. That we had a long-term purchase of this years ago, and so this will be an annual purchase, about $300 a year. And then the additional computer, additional software, and IT support will probably be about $200. So we're about another $4,500 than what's in the budget. And then the $40,000, which is a water meter relocation, and this will be our last year to move meters from underneath houses, which is very beneficial to our water system.
Any questions on that? All right, at this time, I'll open it up for public input. If anybody has anything they would like to address the board about, you could please step up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. All right. Oh.
I was waiting. Matthew Nyberg, 517 Dove Ranch Road. I know that you guys are looking at the budget this time of year, and certain increases have been asked for, but I would ask the board to look at those increases and also look at the behavior before you give those increases. And I guess what I'm referring to is what Minnie has called Bannergate. And there was a banner that was put up by the BEAT, the Early Education Program. Yes, they exceeded their limit, there is an ordinance, but I think that it could have been dealt with in a different manner and maybe with a little bit more truth, instead of just tearing the banner down and disposing it in the town trash can. And I think with the school being one of the pillars in the community, we need to have that dedication and devotion to working with them collaboratively and not necessarily having the result that we had. I think that we could work that in a professional manner. So I would, when you're looking at the budget, I'd like for you to take that in consideration. Thank you.
Dave Flax, 606 Flint Highway. How come there's no money for deer mitigation? You guys aren't gonna have a sense of humor at all.
Well, didn't you sit through that presentation?
I was like, weren't you here when we did that? Didn't we talk about that at one
I
point?
have spent a lot of time looking at the budget, and, well, operation costs have gone up a little bit, I get that. But one thing that jumps out at me is the line item in the administrative costs. And in 3 years, that's gone up 41%. That's a lot. Now, I get it, there's a workload, and you guys have added people. But, couple of things there. You guys have a lot of wish lists, and I don't think you've looked at all of the possibilities for revenue before you take these things to a ballot question. And I remember Jackie came and talked to you before she left town. And you guys are leaving $400,000, $500,000 a year of revenue on the table by not allowing hot shops in town. Seriously, it's that much. And it just pains me to just know that there's that kind of tax migration out of the community. The hardest cost to control in any organization is the cost of labor. So as you guys are adding all of these positions, you know, take into consideration how much that costs. You know, if they're here for 10 years, that's $1 million. It's $1 million if they're here for 10 years. So, I just want you to be more responsible with our money. There's a finite amount of it. And what we need to do is make sure that we can keep as much of our revenue here as possible. You know, and if that means pursuing better grocery stores, do that. I mean, there are things you can be doing. That's clear to me. So, at any rate, I see that the ballot issue on the fire station passed, so that's a good thing. I don't know about your sales tax. Personally, I hope it didn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public input? All right, seeing none, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and resume our regular scheduled meeting, which brings up our East Oak Drive alignment proposal discussion. And we do have members of the school board, as well as the superintendent, if you would like to join us in the front of the room. I'll go ahead and allow you to introduce yourselves for the record here.
I'm Rebecca Farnell, Bayfield School District Board Member.
Leon Hanhart, Superintendent of Schools for Bayfield School District.
Mike Phelps, Board President.
Thank you. Nicole, is this your kickoff here?
Sure, I will kick this off. So, we've been talking back and forth with the school district, and Katie and I did attend one of their school board meetings a couple months ago, just to continue the discussion of East Oak Drive and the East Oak Drive connection. We have engineers looking at the new intersection signal at 55160, and we have requested some
I'd just like to add, we also have Paul Black here as well. He joined us in the front of the room.
And so just wanted to continue these discussions on the East Oak Drive School District, go up the overall plan so everybody can see what's going on. Just say in the town right now, we're having engineering done for the new signal. And as part of that project, we have the budget to, continue the engineering up to what the East Oak Drive connection is going to look like. And so we wanted to make sure we open this discussion back up with the school board. These plans were done in 2019, so of course, there's been a lot of changeover, and most of us were not even here when they originally went through, so we wanted to make sure that we kind of gave that public process a due process, to go back through this plan. And ultimately, there's 5 alternatives right now. And we really, in order for our engineers to even get in there and start doing engineering, we really need to narrow this down. We can't study 5 plans, we don't have the budget to look at 5 different plans. And so we really need to start working on narrowing down what the concept plan needs to be. Definitely want the school board, because it's possibly, it is on their property. We have found that we do have an easement in place, for concept. For alternative 1, I should say. When the school was annexed, there was an easement granted. Right now, it's 140 feet for construction, and it ends up being a 60-foot right-of-way within there. And so, concept 1 ideally was designed around utilizing that easement that the town has in place for that roadway. However, the Los Pinos ditch also has an easement through there. We have not yet found an easement for this gathering line and the gas driveway, the gas well driveway. So we're still working to try and figure out if they even have an easement within that area. But there is an easement in place to look at this option right here. Option 4 is what the engineers preferred option is, and it's really based on a lot of level of service. So in terms of the crossings with the pipeline, with the ditch, as well as pulling the road off so that there's less impact to the existing neighborhood in terms of traffic. Because this is going to be a road that will bring traffic from the highway up, from the new development to the east up, this direction as well. And so that's the engineering preferred, but that does look at a lot more property from the school district than what has already been granted. And so I think the discussion, we've been going back and forth with the board, with the school district. Ultimately, we'd like to have a meeting where everybody gets together and makes a decision, but I know the school board had some questions, and so that's really what we wanted to open this forum up for today, was having some of them come, be able to ask the questions of staff, of the board, in a public setting, so that we can just continue to move this project along, and hopefully be able to start doing something in the future. So with that, I guess I can turn it over to you all if you want to start.
So we weren't quite sure, to be honest with everybody, what the format of this meeting was going to be. And there's 2 of us, which is pretty intentional, because we're probably like you, if there's 3 of us, then we have to announce it as a formal meeting. And we didn't really have an interest in having a formal meeting with the board here. So Rebecca and myself are the 2 board members, and we're really representing the board. And our goal was to try to understand really what the town wants to do and kind of what you're looking from us, and then we'll go back and report to the other board members. We probably won't have a formal vote until it actually comes to where there's an easement that the town's asking us for. But we understand that for this to work, we understand the desire to narrow it down. So our goal was to come really work with you all and try to help you in that process. Our interest needs to be for the district is the impact school plan, and not get into the impact of the neighborhood, or the residents up the road, or other things. We feel like really that's the town's purview, and so we're really in focusing on the impact of our land. And you're right about the easement on the 60 feet for option number 1, but it's not in the right place. The 60 feet is actually up next to the property line, so none of those, none of the options right now fit within the easement. It was dedicated in the annexation agreement. It's not a showstopper, but everyone does need to know that whichever one of these options the town were to go with the exception of option number 5, where you come through the corner, there'll have to be a new easement granted to the town. That being said, we've looked at it, we've talked about it internally, and we feel like that, it's to both the town's benefit and the school's benefit to work together when we're kind of joined at the hip.
Yeah.
Right? So it makes sense that we work together on this and have really hope what we see as a positive outcome for both of us. When we start looking at the different options, option number 1 has the least impact to the school, and so we like that. But the other options, so that option number 1, that has the least impact to school property. I don't know how reasonable that is for the town and the engineers on the load to the intersection. Really, that's kind of up to the town and your engineers to decide. And the same thing with Los Pinos Water District. That option is okay with us. Your preferred option right now, I think the one that scored the highest was 3A.
4.
4A. And so just a couple of things on here that we would like to, can I stand up and point to this? What we're interested in when this really maybe when this development over here happens and the number of people move in, we could see that impacting our school facilities and the need. Probably it's the middle school might be our weakest building right now. It's pushing 50 years old. And we put a new roof on part of it this year, but it's a Band-Aid. So eventually we're gonna have to do something with that middle school. And so and we think probably it's gonna happen up in here. And so one of our things that we really want is we want to protect access to the middle school. And we have access all along here, and right now we use 4 different access points. We want to maintain this access point. One of our concerns on this preferred option is its proximity to this. And that really is for your engineer to look at, but it's only like 110 or 120 feet apart. It's a pretty good load to look at right there. So we would ask if you go with this, that you have your engineers look at that proximity to those 2 entrances. Because again, this land here is really important to us, that we have the ability to develop this and we need to be able to get in and out of it. And that's down the road for us quite a while. We don't know what the design's gonna be, so we wanna maintain those 4 access points that we have. The other thing on this that we're not super fond of is right down here. If you look at where all this parking empties out for the parent pickup and drop off, there's no stacking space right here. And so we're gonna get into, you guys been to the high school, it's kinda like getting out of high school on game night, it's really hard to get out. So we would ask that you have your engineer look at this stacking space right here. Another issue that we would ask is that this, I call it no man's land, and Katie, you pointed that out in an email to people, thank you for that. But is we don't want to become responsible for maintaining this, whether it's weed control or mowing or whatever. We would ask that when we get cut off from that, we can't use it anymore, that land, that somebody else maintains that. Am I forgetting anything? I mean, I think it kind of goes without saying when we, when the schools did when we did the bond issue, and then we had the annexation agreement with the town, and we had the MOU where we paid the town that $500,000 for this intersection down.
Yeah.
We're assuming that this is on the town. The costs that are associated with this would be on the town. None of those costs would be passed on to the school district.
Yep.
That would, I guess, just a point of clarification. I'm not sure, honestly, if you have a whole lot else.
I have a quick question, if you don't mind. have of the two plats that you provided in the.
No, I think that's a typo. Yeah, it's to eliminate 3, maybe 4 of these plans. Yeah.
So is it, I mean, we have 2 of them here, and Nicole, without making any assumptions, does the town feel that A1 and A4 are the 2 that they're looking at here? Because I know there's only 2 in this package.
I think so. I think that those two make the most sense in terms of looking at it, because A1, we might be able to do all within an easement that's already been granted. We'll have to look at that. And then A4 is the preferred plan just based on all the levels of service. And again, we know these are conceptual, and our engineers are gonna have to take that into account, and we'll make sure we work with the school on that. I think the biggest thing we wanna understand is, we don't wanna spend the money on the engineering if it's absolutely not. The school's like, no way are you getting any more land. And so we wanna make sure that we're working together and understanding that it's possible we can get another easement if one of these 2 works out best. And again, cost is gonna be a big one, and one might be a lot. I mean, right now, 4 is twice the amount of 1, and that was in 2019. And I know Mike and I have talked about it. We could probably double that price right now for today's numbers.
I have no doubt.
So, I mean, that's definitely something we're gonna need to look at as part of it too. But I think narrowing it down to 2 and letting our engineers take some additional look at it, try and figure out, the ditch location and how the impact will that be, working with them and, Paul, and then also even just working with the oil and gas. So there's gonna be a lot right there in terms of plans that we do. There's a lot going on.
So let me explain the copies. It wasn't intentional to leave out 2, 3, and 5. Part of it was the fact that we have copied this so many times. We thought, doesn't everybody have a sheet by now? So we had the no man's land, and then number 1, which is something we just printed out. And actually, I went through my recycling bin to find copies for Paul, because I don't think because we've printed this out a lot. So it was not intentional to remove those. It was just.
I think just working it out, I think those 2 make a lot of sense to look at and have our engineers looking at.
The easement that the town has with the district right now is 60 feet, it's here. So you come down from this property corner right here, 60 feet, and go across to right there. That's the 60 feet where it looks in reading the narrative from SCH, there's a 140-foot construction easement. I think that's maybe why this is down here. And again, it's not a showstopper, but any of these are, you can't do it without getting new easement. And something else I forgot to mention too is what we'd like is if we can preserve as much land as we can by bringing this up closer to this pipeline. We feel like there's 25 feet in here because this is
I kind of
another
agree.
piece of property here we can end up developing someday as the district moves forward.
So you're saying it's 60 feet. So we have documents that say 140. Is there?
40 says construction easement, I'm pretty sure, Ms. Sickles.
Yeah.
And then if you read a little bit further, it'll say 60 feet for a permanent
But
easement.
it doesn't say where it's located. That's
It
why
does. There's a
okay, well,
surveyor's description that comes off the property.
Is that you, Tom?
I probably wrote it, don't even know it.
It's a good thing you didn't leave the room.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I will say that I agree that if we can get it closer to that red pipeline up there, it'd be more beneficial. Because with the amount of homes we got going in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to need as much of that school's land as you can, so.
Well, and we've been looking at this so long, there was a time where I thought number 5 was the answer, To me, it made the most sense for the longest, but it's like, well, now we got to talk about going through 2 houses but to me, it's the least disruptive and kind of goes with the flow of existing traffic. So, I mean, this has been hard. That's why I'm glad you guys are here to hear your concerns, and I know that we might have members of the public, but yeah, I think this is.
And I know 1 seems easiest, but it doesn't feel like there's going to be enough road and access to make it work with all the new subdivision to get to those schools and anything else along that ends up built down that way.
It's a tough inch.
Yeah, it's tough. I have a feeling if we did 1, we would be redoing it at some point because it's not big enough. It's not
Paul, do you have any
not work.
ditch concerns?
Yeah, you guys were talking about that no man's land. I don't know if you can bring that slide, or if you have that slide.
Yeah, it's right there.
We have it on a.
That's it, it's just that yellow.
So along with that BP line, there's actually two laterals that go directly.
You want to go,
Yeah.
sorry.
So right here is the Los Pinos ditch, and there's a manhole right here, and there's actually two pump stations, and those laterals come all the way over right in that probably 60-foot easement. One was to feed this property, I don't believe they have water rights anymore, but the infrastructure's still in. The other one continues on down to the golf property, and they currently irrigate every year. So just knowing that, you do have quite a bit of infrastructure built in here with irrigation stuff. So moving it over, that's gonna cause you to probably have to move that out of, from underneath the road or whatever to think about. And the ditch is definitely on grade. So when you go to think about moving things, or I know one kind of shows it coming through here, if you had to bump that up, you're gonna have to move and put it on grade. So it's a pretty big construction aspect of it, but like you guys said, it's a pretty tough scenario, so I know the ditch company is willing to look and do whatever they can to help you guys out, but I noticed that lateral stuff is never on the maps, and there's two of them that shoot directly this way, so, and it's pump systems and piping as well, so.
Paul, is that north of the red line, or is it,
It's going to.
Or is it
yeah,
gonna
it's
be-
pretty close right on that road,
Okay.
on the BP road that runs up through there, pretty close to the line, actually the BP line. And like I said, the one kind of dead ends, and it used to irrigate all this property. I believe they lost those water rights, but the infrastructure's still there. But the one pipeline does carry all the way
Okay.
on over to the golf property, which sits over here.
so it kind of needs to still be no man's land a little bit?
Yeah,
But maybe we
so-
can get up to that red line.
Yeah, it's in between the red line and the property line.
Okay.
And they haven't lost their rights yet. We negotiated that when they start subdividing.
Oh, out here, they still do hold the water rights, okay. So, yeah. That's all I have. Anybody else have
Thank
any
you.
questions?
I mean, Nicole, in your opinion, feasibility-wise, cost-wise, are there just like 2, 3 that you just say, no? I mean, is that,
Sounds costly.
yeah, I mean, they're all costly, but,
Yeah.
you know, now that I've heard that, moving ditches and grading, and like, that's just adding, you know, which scenarios is that?
Yeah, but it's hard to say until you get engineering, because again, it's also conceptual, and again, that's why it doesn't show everything. We haven't really had our engineers out there actually looking at it beyond just putting some lines on the map. And so that's really the next step we wanna get to see what's feasible, and then looking at cost estimates to see if that even makes sense. And so I think looking at two, you know, part of it is gonna be the same, and then the other section's gonna be a little bit different, but getting two cost estimates, and then we can talk with the board, talk with the school board, and figure out what works best for everybody, when looking at a lot of the constraints. And so again, these constraints that came out of this initial plan, there's probably more. Like, until they get on the ground, it's hard to know all the constraints that we're dealing with. And so that's really what we wanna do is, spend the money wisely and make sure that we're looking at, the best options for this location, and it's a tough one. But it's also a very important, roadway because of what's going on at that location with new development, existing neighborhoods, 2 schools in that location, so making sure that we don't impact the schools. We wanna make sure the parents have the best, safest drop-off and pickup situation as well, buses. So there's a lot going on at this location. It's gonna be a challenging one, and I always say the easy things are already done. If it was easy, it would have already been built, so. It's just gonna be something we've gotta look at, but it's an important connection point for everybody.
So you guys okay with 1 and 4?
I
as
mean,
options. Yeah.
And it's possible it could be a hybrid, something else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
could very well be.
We're looking at it.
And Ms. Moreland, I'm gonna partially answer your question with the question right back to Mayor Tarkin. We would need to go back to our entire board.
Right.
Have a conversation, be able to have that
Right.
discussion with them. And so that leads me to my question for you is, as superintendent, what are the next steps that you would like me to take with our board so that we can continue to move forward with our relationship and communication?
Yeah, I mean, I think a discussion with the board and try to narrow yours down, just say what is the best possible outcome for our students, our teachers, and your land. And then I think we have to go from there. I mean, you guys hold a lot of this in your court, so, and we want to work with you. And, you know, we're not making just any decisions tonight, and we're going to allow some public input as well. I mean, I'd love to hear what people have to say about it, but, you know, I would like to narrow this down and have, like Nicole said, let's just toss out 3 of them. And if that means going back to the board, or if you guys already kind of know where your board stands, you know, if you put the feelers out there, then we can give direction from there. But if you need some time to take it back to your board, well,
We've added it as a discussion item at our board meeting next Tuesday.
okay.
So it may be the same conversation if you're available and want to come answer questions that may
Maybe
be.
Katie, I have planning commission, but maybe Katie.
Yeah, I can attend.
Yeah, and I think that the sentiment, you know, like I said, we've discussed this as a board, our planning commission. I think we all have had ideas of what we think is best, but it's been helpful having you guys here in the room to have that discussion.
Most of the options are pretty similar, with the exception of 1 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
The other ones are variations of the same alignment, and so they're really similar. And I mean, Ms. Sickles is welcome to come, but what we're probably going to do next week is have a discussion item, because it really isn't a voting item for us. We'll just make sure that there's no opposition. It's not something we're gonna vote on probably till we have an easement. We'll do that and then report back. I think Rebecca and Leon, I can feel pretty confident that, the board will agree with, our recommendations.
And then is the goal are we gonna have we're not discussing this again with planning commission? Maybe just updating?
I think we will.
Okay.
Once we have more information, we'll want to make sure, I mean, what we'll probably do if we get some direction on looking and studying both is we're gonna have to bring all that back. And we want the planning commission to be involved in that process.
Where we would wanna be kept kind of in the loop as the design moves along.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to change, and so, rather than have it done and us go, oops, we really don't like this, you know, there'll be steps along the way, maybe we can be kept abreast.
Yeah, usually for engineering, we'll do like a 30% design, a 60% design, and then 90 and then final. And so we can make sure that during those different phases, 30 will be the next one if we start this, soon for possibly both of them. And then from there, maybe it's narrowed down, so we're not spending all the money on 2 designs. So once we get to 30 and we really flesh out a lot of things, maybe at that point we can narrow down to 1 design to move forward with.
And you know,
Make sure everyone's at the table.
while I have everybody in the room, I'd like to open it up for public discussion, because we might have somebody that brings up something that we're not looking at, and I just want to survey the room and ask if anybody has any public opinions on this item.
And I make a quick announcement. Our Zoom's been very funky today, and it's telling me I have 10 minutes left on this. So at some point, I'm gonna have to stop it. Tia, you're gonna have to get back on.
Okay.
It's gonna kick us off, and then I'll restart it. I don't know why it's being like this today, so there you have it.
Yeah, you have to come up to, I know, the microphone.
I just
Oh.
want to know.
Oh, here we go, there you go.
I just would like to know where North Oak Drive is.
On the map?
Is it that corner? Yes, right here. So you're not gonna go on Tanner and north? Well, this other development, I wish I had let me zoom up a little bit and see this one. So there's, oops, look right here. so that not everybody has to go down Oak. But Oak's gonna be, it's gonna be a large road, system that's going through here. But the other thing is, instead of everybody having to go down Mountain View for the schools, they're gonna have, which we're calling North Bayfield Parkway right now. So here's the gas station. This road's gonna connect up from the highway, so hopefully that'll alleviate half of the traffic that goes down to, Mountain View right now. Does that answer your question? But here, so we're talking about Oak Drive. North. Well, it's East Oak is what that's called. Oh, you're talking about the. North? Yeah. So it's not gonna go up that way. Not at all. It won't make more traffic.
Well, one of them does.
So option, well, all the options except for, or I would say 1 and 5 still push traffic into that neighborhood. Let me show you the, sorry. So this is option 1. And so here's Oak Drive. And that's where it turns up. And so option 1 would bring it right into where, Cedar is located. Option 2, 3, and 4, try and bring the traffic over and they don't go into Oak until you get near the middle school. And so this neighborhood would have their own access, but the main traffic would not go through the neighborhood. So that's 2, 3, and like Mike said, they're all very similar in 4. They just have some different uniqueness to each one. And then option 5 was to actually go right up. Here's Oak Drive. And, this one we would have to acquire property, go right through and connect this direction. So those were the 5 options that were done in 2019, and we're trying to narrow it down. So right now, we're looking at option 1, which would come up right here into Oak, and then option 4, which would bypass that portion of Oak until you get in front of the middle school. Thank you. You're welcome.
Is there any other public comment? Okay. Yeah, so I guess, meet with your board and we'll be curious to hear, we'd love to move forward with getting a plan together.
1 and 4 is what you're interested in.
I mean, if your board came back to us and said, we don't want you going through our school land, we want you to look at 5, I mean, we're gonna sit and have that discussion.
But your desires are 1 and 4 is what I think I'm hearing. 'Cause I don't wanna take a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our hope.
One makes sense because there's an easement there, and so we wanna look at what that would look like. 4, I'd say from the city's perspective, 4, we understand that it impacts your property, but it also gets a lot of that traffic out of the neighborhood, which is something that we're concerned with. And so that's why we're looking at those. And I know there were other ones, like, 2, 3, and 4 all do that, but 4 had the best in terms of levels of service, with all the different conditions that are on them.
So that'll help us be more concise with our board rather than have it wide open if we can say that the town is most interested in 1 and 4.
And 4 is based off of our, again, I'd say engineering, yeah.
We do have some more comment. Can you just stand up, state your name and address? You can use that mic.
Luann Wilson, 1591, County Road 526. Did I hear you correctly say, though, that you thought if 4 wasn't chosen now, you might have to be redoing 1? Did somebody think that maybe that was gonna happen? So, my input is, get it right the first time. Don't spend extra time 5 years later.
I think we agree with that.
Yeah. That was my concern with 1, was that it wasn't built enough to sustain the growth that's gonna happen. It's the least expensive and the least, on your land and that sort of thing, and so I can see that appeal for something like that, but I do feel like 4 is the better option, but we're working with you guys. I mean, it's your land. We can't just, we wanna work with you guys, so.
All right. and school board elections tonight, so a lot of shakeup, so.
Just shake it up, rattle and roll.
Yeah, so we'll be looking forward to hearing from you, and feel free to reach out with questions, and we'll move forward after we hear from you. Thanks for coming out. Thank you for being here today.
So it looks like Prop HH has failed in the state, and and so has the sales tax for Bayfield. They have both failed.
That's a bummer.
I'm gonna end this real quick and then I'll get back on. I have a minute.
Okay. Does it show what the margin was on that?
The town was 42.86 was a yes, 57.14 was a no. I mean, we knew that it was such last minute that, yeah. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Well, the Herald wants to talk to me tonight about that, so.
What help?
The Herald wants me to call them after this meeting to give them a statement about sales tax.
Okay.
We have a break,
Okay.
a technology break.
I don't really know what they want me to say. Like, okay, well, this will affect our programming, this will affect our ability to staff all of it. Say, we have 400 and some people come out.
Oh,
Say how much they wanted
So I'm gonna need to go into log into
their parks. So,
Remember they changed it from you to you?
I mean, it's good.
what do you mean?
They changed the name from.
Oh,
They must, the settings must.
You know, he was like living in a lark. Well, I got
Dustin.
he was
Blame it on Dustin?
he was living in a lark, so I moved his camper and everything. But he was like, I don't think I can live and stay in the winter. Oh, you And I was like, what if you rent like one of the larks, like, yeah, so I don't know what happened if they just.
See anything that had to do with construction easement, doesn't say anything about construction easement. Yep.
I knew he had some. Some things that got in trouble.
So and I can't find the location of the road right to me.
Really different. He was like, he was handy. He could fix.
So I would just
And then
like
he also
some
told me that his dad
clarification that I'm reading it right, because I didn't see like
he was willing
the
to
location of the road.
buy a large property so that he could have like a big RV park. So I wonder if that. I don't know.
Cedar, it's definitely.
So I don't know. Yeah.
Is it cedar?
Yep, Cedar Company is that, but if that's in them.
Suggesting that it's I don't know what,
I don't either.
just is that 140 feet there?
Did you get a ribbon? Yeah, she got a ribbon, little turkey.
About this close. If you read the language further,
it's almost right there. So it's 140 feet there, and then 60 feet.
yeah.
But I do agree, I mean, you'd have to have like
No? I mean, I think.
I just want to make sure we all agree with this. And I don't know,
Actually, yeah, he was off the
the roadway was spelled out, just somewhere within there.
Oh, you should have came on over. We had and call.
We got done, then we went to.
I was like, oh, I don't know.
There's two different easements.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, because that's this one. Yeah, so that's the one, yep. So that's this road right here. That's that easement. Yep, so we have both of them. Well, we should just ask the guy who wrote the easement.
That's what I was mad about. Like,
Full of stuff. I go, if
when I went back to the resolution, like, where's the road? You have to get approval,
Not yet.
whatever days after you were there. And then it, at some point.
I saw the car down there.
Self-explanatory.
I was gonna text you. You did not run that one.
No.
I
Well,
can't according to this resolution, we were here when we hired.
The town's gonna pay for
We
it.
decided we did not want any more grant. Too many, like, you got this.
I don't
you
know.
got to do it this way. I was like, we want it black
I
and
was
white.
trying to look, I can't listen and read.
They have to do the engineering.
And I'm like,
Like, I don't hear half of what's going on.
like,
Yeah.
well, I mean, once again, it's personality. It's like, that's
Where did that easement go?
I have to go down there and see
Yeah.
it.
so.
I
if we
know,
have to
I
go
didn't
back
get
to
out on
Well,
my
I don't
walk
have
today.
a packet.
Spicy, and I'm like,
I can go get,
Oh, yeah.
there's another surface up in my,
now I'm like, I can't eat that.
well, there's another surface up there. In the bottom drawer.
Oh, what time is that?
Like the new
12:45.
cabinet I moved next to my drawer.
I'm gonna try to.
I'm like, well, that's not.
People are messing up my schedule with these stupid
they're
calls
like,
they want me to do.
Technically,
So,
is.
I know,
as a
I
type,
can.
and
I
change
just
it.
like to come in.
I mean, I can see if I can just zoom in.
But I was like, as far as any legality,
And you have an appointment with somebody, you
like,
don't even get a chance
you're
to talk
barking
to
up
them.
a dead end, you
I
know?
know.
So I
See,
thought I
that's
had
what
him,
happens and there's like,
I thought I had him top
But
of
it's
the list,
good.
but Matt's
You
good.
may say,
good. It's, I don't wanna be doing this by myself. Yeah.
I think you just had to come in here.
Not. I drank that one time.
That's where he was.
I drank
going
that
on
one time.
Yeah.
And when is David Black gonna get over marijuana? Like, we let that go a long time ago. You don't think?
Not even that much tax.
No, with New Mexico? No, they're going out of business in Durango because they have too many. Yeah, because
Get a new system
you
here
can
so
now go to
everybody can
Aztec
hear.
and get it.
And then, yeah, I totally give up.
You should say, I know, I hear that all the time. Like,
No, we only took
the people in the back, they can't hear anything.
No, it did not lose
That
by
would
that
be a
much. It was
trick.
like $8. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And to be
I wonder
quite
what he
honest,
does.
we did not have to take it. We could have voted it through.
No, I don't know.
The board was in favor. We almost
Yeah, but I
launched
don't know what
that
else
and
he
did it
does.
ourselves. But we said, you know what? They're responsible because we all want our tires intact when we leave here. We should put it to
Yeah.
the voters. But yeah.
Are they voting tomorrow for
Oh, yeah.
members? 'Cause didn't somebody tell me to put my name on the list? Yeah, somebody told me to put my name on the list, and I said, okay. Why did I do that?
Ever owned a business? Like, I mean,
And my feeling is, how many people drive to Durango to go shopping? Everybody. You wouldn't have even noticed it. You're already used to paying that kind of sales tax. You wouldn't have even noticed it.
I mean, it's a hiccup. Like, it wouldn't.
We're just gonna need that time set today. It would-
Nicole, I'm in. I'm in.
a committee go out and talk about
Let me tell you.
that's, I think,
Yeah, Brian Blanchard was on it, man. He was trying.
He was, yeah.
We had a little IT issue here.
It's funny, like, so David and everybody else always brings it first.
Yeah, sometimes.
For one, this intersects, like, Ezra's entire decision is he's already pulled out of the store right now. This costs 33% of his budget. It's like, no, I'm not doing it. But the other reality is, like,
What?
it's stuff we're still in the corners of this movie. Doing, like, geo studies, it's any demographics, so, like, anybody.
She's in. Yeah, yeah.
They look at it, it's like, you don't have a door guy. Okay, cool. That's fine. How do we get the door guy? Well, we gotta do
Let's
these
go see.
It's not, you have to manually do it, so it's
Something's going on.
So yeah, go there and just record, but it only lets you do it to your computer, so you're gonna be.
They want everything.
You
Yeah.
can't have anything until we have to provide the numbers. And it's just like, it's like, how do, you can't have cake and eat it.
And we looked at that when we
Tia,
were,
can
we're
you
talking-
hear us?
We're talking about getting a motel. It was like 2018.
Tia, can you
and it was
hear
based
us?
on rooftops, right? We're like, okay, we need rooftops. So like, okay, what if we annex Homestead? What if we like look at Forest Lakes? We couldn't even afford those subdivisions.
Tia, can you hear us?
More plow trucks, more infrastructure, more police force, more. It's like, and the property taxes that we would get from it wouldn't even touch. So we were like, okay, we gotta wait till we just to grow right here.
Why don't you do
No.
same as system,
So,
and then click on split here real quick?
I don't know. It's,
Go back, or go back to the arrow, split, and then cost of living. Go ahead and do same as system. Tia, can you hear us?
The thing with, with David, like right at graduating skills, both it's like this is not the same Bayfield in 1998.
no, it's not.
This has been our life story today. I mean, you know how much it costs to retain something? You have to entice people to stay in the state.
There's not a chat option either.
Or those other actors that get to have
It's speaking in microphone now.
Oh my gosh.
And then what, be like the Wild Wild West here, like just raping and pillaging and. What's going on? Are we ready to get, are we still?
We got Tom. I don't know what
Oh.
happened to Tom.
Hey, let's get back together here. We're up and running, I think, on the computer.
He passed very well.
We're on Katie's?
Hey,
Okay.
you're on mine.
Okay. We are moving on to approval of the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to review the minutes from October 17th?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes dated October 17, 2023.
Second.
All right, roll call.
Trustee Hartz,
Yes.
Trustee Moreland,
Yes.
Trustee Wolf,
Yes.
Trustee Ah,
Yay.
and Mayor Tarkington.
Yes. All right, moving on to our department reports. Katie, Town Manager Report.
Yeah, so I did give you a copy of Bob Winterstrom provided a thank you, and then the Purple O City also provided a thank you to the town for the $100 we gave to them as well. And then Barbara McLaughlin also sent a thank you. We did the hosted Jeff Bridges and Barbara McLaughlin and Cleve Simpson regarding the Cinnamon Heights. So anyway, I think, you know, this has been kind of a hard summer. Just the transition from taking some of the Parks and Rec Director duties and kind of splitting that up, providing some new departments, the HR department, looking at Mark Robinson as the Parks and Trails Director. And I think we've kind of got some calm in Town Hall. It has taken a while. And, you know, I appreciate the patience of all the employees that kind of had to deal with this kind of shakeup really quickly. But everything, I think, is much calmer than it was a couple months ago. Card security, I've assembled an executive group to discuss the implementation and management of the card security program. And we'll probably get that implemented as soon as we kind of have some forms. Because Joe Shivelshaya has resigned, we're moving that responsibility into the police department. So Amber Abdallah will basically be the manager of the badges and things like that. So, but we still have a ways to go to put that together. You know, housing. You know, what is our responsibility? I just always want to make sure that we have the resources to cover housing. You know, I think Nicole has been a great asset. You know, she got great kudos when they did the groundbreaking at the Best Western, also known as the Durango Residences, and what she did for them, and now what she's doing for the town of Bayfield and looking for housing for our local workforce. And then business licenses, you know, I think that there's sometimes like not understanding what business licenses are for. It's not meant to be a hammer. It's really meant to manage and have sales tax compliance. So the whole packet includes all those requirements. So anytime there's questions, I certainly encourage somebody to pull the whole packet and understand what it is. And if you have questions, come to me. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding when you send somebody to ask questions and they're not asking the questions that I really know how to answer. So, or I know how to answer them, but I'm not basically addressing what they really want. So, Anyway, so we're getting ready. Dustin's got that copy machine just going crazy. We're getting ready to send out renewals. Kind of got that process starts all over again for 2024. And that's all I have unless there's some questions.
Are there any questions? All right, Mark's report is in the packet,
Yes.
unless you have any questions. Dustin?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Board of Trustees. You guys can hear me?
Yeah.
All right, 5th and 6th grade basketball is going. We are 3 out of 5 games in the books on that. Middle school floor, gym floor is pretty rough. DJ's been doing the best he can with the cleaning machine, trying to get that thing cleaned up. It does get a lot of residual dirt and stuff from Pine River Shares and other entities that do use the gym, so we're doing our best there to keep it safe. Soccer has finished up. We still have quite a few pictures left at Town Hall. We did do a MailChimp blast on that and took some to basketball, given out to the people we did see there, so if you guys know of anybody that played, so they can get their pictures. Be Frank event went very well. We had great feedback from Mike Usinowitz on that. He really wanted to shout out to Jeremy and Corey and their crew, getting the barriers done. I did stop in there that afternoon after basketball. Everything was up and going. It looked really fun. I was jealous of the bounce houses they had for the kids, so I might be stealing some of those later on down the road. That was a busy Saturday. The Pine River Shares banquet was that night, as well as basketball and the Be Frank event. So that was a block there. It was really busy going. Homecoming parade, win some, lose some. I felt haven't really participated on this end of it, but from feedback I got, it was mostly more well organized this year. We do have some issues with how we disperse at the end on Center Drive. We need to let the businesses know a little bit better that we're coming and everybody's coming, and we really need to get with Lewis Merck and use their parking lot for the big trailers. Big trailers can't make that turn off of Center Drive on the south, but it worked great for the pedestrians. We did get a little bit negative feedback on the route, but it was one of the routes that the school district brought to us and that everybody felt was the most safe route. Negative feedback was on the incline and quite a walk, but it seemed like the turnout was really well. There was a lot of people on Mountain View. Jeremy and I were on Mountain View, and quite a few people there, and we were standing in the roundabout. As I mentioned earlier, the reversible shirts are coming soon. Hoping to get that on the agenda next meeting. On the clerk side, Kristen's really helping out. She's got all of the agendas and meetings digitized that we could find. So that's a huge accomplishment, a piece that I had started when I started the archiving, and she finished that up. There is a big gap in there, but that gap is on microfilm, and we don't have a microfilm to digital machine. The county has one. Those machines are about $2,000 to get that done. But at least we have it, at least it's safe. Microfilm is one of the things the state archives likes us to put things on anyway, because it's safe, it's not gonna go outdated, I say, because it kinda already is, but it's safe. We know where it is, that's good. And as Katie hit on, actually the renewals will go out in the mail tomorrow. Any questions for me?
No questions. Put a recommendation on the parade. Have somebody go and clean up afterwards because there was trash all along 501.
Candy trash.
It was streamers and stuff like that. It was just, yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, and they have the streamers and they got on 501 and hit 45 miles an hour. It was flying off. That's one thing that I really want to work with them is they always promise us these volunteers. And then I count maybe on one hand. How many
Right.
I count from the schools, right? Handle the intersections, to handle things like that. But on our end of it, these guys did great. I think the
Yeah.
road blockade worked really well with the flashy trucks. They even parked DJ in one out there, so.
Well, this was the first year I thought the trash was super bad. So,
Well, it's never gone that way either.
sure.
So that's good feedback. I can put that in for next year.
Thank you. Amber, HR.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees. So, quick staffing update. Tamis Bryson started. She started on October 17th. She's going to be our sub for the Senior Center Facility Monitor. So she's the sub for Carrie. She's a retired school teacher from the Ignacio School District and she's worked with Carrie in the past. So they're going to be a great team. We have also finally hired an individual for the park maintenance worker position. So he has a lot of experience. He's anxious to get started and he starts on Monday.
And you found a place to live?
And he found a place to live.
All right.
It's in Mancus, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
And then a quick human resource update. So open enrollment started on October 30th. I've been going around talking to all the employees about their benefits election, seeing, how a change would affect them financially. AFLAC came to spend time at Town Hall for employees who had questions, and open enrollment ends on November 17th. And then upcoming, the chili cook-off is this Thursday, so you've all been getting my emails. Let me know if you have any questions about that. And thank you to Mayor Tarkington for providing some prizes for that. Any questions for me?
How many entries did you have? There's,
We have 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
it's on.
That's a
It's
lot.
really fun.
All right. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief O'Gay, did you have anything to add to your report?
Well, we kind of talked about Lexipol earlier. This is an awesome tool that I've used at 2 different departments, and I was the, thank you. I was the manager of the program at both departments. So when I moved out here, I had the same rep from Lexipol. So I was able to have him reissue every disabled policy that was disabled from the system, put it back in play so that they are now all federal, state, and all the best practices have been modernized to make it, if we were to go for a CLIA accreditation, we would pass.
Now.
But we're not going to.
Oh.
But we could. If we wanted to go for accreditation, our policy manual has been put in such a way that we would be ready to pass an accreditation test.
Okay. Cool. All right. Any other questions on that? How was your post certification?
That was 2 weeks of, I've been through a lot of tough courses. There was 24 that started. 1 dropped after the first test, and 8 failed one of the skills. So we only had really 15, 14 people that passed the full class. I don't even know how many passed a written exam on the last day. I know I did, but I don't know how many else did because everybody just left when they got done because it was literally, in the 2 weeks, it was 120 hours of me being in 10 to 12 hour day classes.
Ooh.
So it was brutal.
Well, good job on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the chief? All right, we'll move on to our financial action agenda. We're looking at the October 2023 disbursements. Did anybody have any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept those disbursements. Someone, anyone?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the October 2023 disbursements.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Trustee Hartz,
Yes.
Trustee Moreland,
Yes.
Trustee Wolf,
Yes.
Trustee Ah,
Yay.
and Mayor Tarkington.
Yes. All right, review of the 2023 budget supplement number 3.
Number 3, budget supplement for 2023 is kind of got the history of this fund from when it first started to when we will finalize it and finish it this year. The supplement is basically just an expenditure somewhat to remove that money to the capital improvement fund. That's what it was intended for, so that's where we'll be moving it. And there is a public hearing on that. That's a requirement of the budget process.
Does the board have any questions on that? Okay, we will revisit that on the 21st. We'll move on to our action agenda items. Do we have any public input pertaining to items 6, A, B, or C on the agenda? Yes. Please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Robert Gallegos. I live at 1727 North Taylor Circle. I'm referencing 6, B, the acceptance for the sewer line easements there through North Taylor Circle. The reason I'm speaking is because that is my property. It goes right through mine and my neighbor 1729 Darrell Rogers. I spoke with Paul and Nicole. They've been really helpful giving me information about what's going on. Just things I want you guys to be aware of. If you've been out there, you know that there's a pretty good sized grade there. And I want to make sure that, that if we go ahead with this, that somebody's responsible for taking care of that grade so it doesn't just flood out my place. She pulled it, thank you, Nicole. She pulled, can I go there?
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, please.
Okay. So, here's my house here, here's Darrell Rogers' house, here's the Los Pinos ditch that goes right here. As you see, my house is really close to that. And, if they hydrovac a hole right here, and my concern at that time, that was back in July, my concern was structural integrity of Los Pinos ditch. I just wanna make sure that, if we reach that point to where we go ahead and offer it, you guys accept that easement, the town of Bayfield accepts that. Just wanna know who's gonna be responsible if that structural integrity ever breaks and it floods my place. Cause as you see, it's so close, the potential for flooding my place is pretty big. And Paul won't be able to shut off that water by turning a hose, you know, and thousands and thousands of gallons could prevent, possibly flood through the whole neighborhood there. So, Paul, gave me a lot of good information. He was saying that they do have people, structural engineers, that check that out, and they make sure that that's safe, and just so you guys are aware of that. And then, like I said, we have a steep grade here, just wanna make sure that, the private school, if they have any kind of, deal for any kind of drainage like that, so it doesn't flood this neighborhood, it floods out that way or a different way, so it's safe for the homes. We know that they have 2 different options for the private school. This is the most, cost-effective. Jeremiah shared that with me, that's most cost-effective for the private school. So we're not totally opposed to looking at offering the easement to the town of Bayfield. We just wanna make sure that there's something in writing that will protect us if that ditch ever breaks, we don't just lose our home, okay? That's why, just wanna put that out there. You know, if they're gonna do any kind of trenching or hydrovacing or anything else in the future, you know, we just wanna make sure that structurally that ditch stays safe for not just us, but for all the neighbors in that area, you know?
Yeah, I'm at the
That's why I
bottom.
said we're not opposed to offering that to the town, as Nicole had let us know that that's an option, and if you guys accept that. Any questions of me?
No, thank you. I appreciate you being here. That's. All right, any other public input in that? Yes, Paul.
Paul Black, 311 County Road 501, here with the Los Pinos group. We did, the Hope Church, they reached out to us about that, asked if they could go ahead and, I guess you call it prospect for that line, because they couldn't find any plans of it, didn't know how it got there, they just kind of heard rumors that it was put in when the development was in there. They asked us if we could go ahead and look through our records to see if we have any engineered plans for it. We have not found any of that stuff, so we don't know an engineered plan of that sewer line putting in, no kind of agreement that they'd asked to put it in there. So that kind of only knowing the history of this project up there, Dove Ranch, if you guys are gonna dedicate an easement, I think you really wanna make sure that was put into proper specs before you accept it. It would be a big bummer to purchase an easement and get that all put in there and realize that it's not an actual really good working deal. It
and throw them in there. As far as if you guys are gonna go forward with that, I think we should probably clean that whole thing up with an agreement with the ditch company, and make sure that we get everything kinda in place, showing that that right of way goes across the ditch. Definitely make sure that we've got integrity there, that we're not gonna lose any kind of water or leaks that follow that line going down. Hopefully it comes out to be easy, that it was done proper, and we can just get an easement in there and everything looks good. So, that's all I have.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to, oh, we got
somebody
another one.
else.
Jeremiah Ackerman, 411 East Columbine Drive in Bayfield. I just figured since we're on that topic, I'd add a little color to that situation there. As Robert said, we had hydrovac the hole to actually find the pipe and mainly the sewer line, because that's really all we need. The water line there actually is not big enough to serve fire hydrants, so won't really be using that at this point, but the sewer line is there. It's 7 feet deep to the top of the pipe, and so it goes under the ditch presumably when they pipe that. We don't have any plan or anything showing exactly what those clearances were, anything to that effect. All we can figure is it was installed during the development of Dove Ranch when that was done, and done so to serve this particular parcel that's known as Track 2. There was, in the master plan for Dove Ranch, there was gonna be 73 homes on that lot, as it was marketed. And, that was the sewer line that was gonna serve those 73 homes, because otherwise, they would have been going uphill. So we would assume in conversations with the previous developer's engineer, that was her recollection of what that line was put there for. Jeremy did come out and look at it and said it appeared to be a standard SDR pipe that is what they use for the sewer lines. Additionally, the town had those lines all camera last year or 2 years ago, and they actually have a camera footage of the inside of that pipe on record, and everything looked good. It hasn't been used, it's capped off. Part of our plan is to put a manhole where that pipe crosses over onto the church property there, and so that there's an access point and there's less than 150 feet between the manhole there, and then there's another manhole down on North Taylor. Yeah, right there. So it's a straight shot and should be relatively easy for the town to maintain going forward. And that's really what we're looking for, is to make this, win-win for everybody.
So just as a clarification, if we do an agreement, Los Pinos charges us a crossing fee, is that correct? So in that crossing fee, that would be the developer's responsibility to cover that. And that would be an agreement. We would probably be part of this whole process in the developer's responsibility. Just want to make sure that bringing that up is that you're aware of that.
Sure. Yeah, we're willing to work with, whoever we need to work with. The line has already crossed the ditch. It's installed and underneath.
It's a cooperation that we do with the Los Pinos ditch. If we need to cross it and there wasn't a crossing agreement in the past, then that we would do a crossing agreement basically as cooperation to recognize their ditch and any construction as well.
Yeah, and I don't know if it makes a difference, but there actually is an easement there already. It's just with the HOA that is no longer in place. So I'd imagine back at that time, there would have had to been an agreement with the HOA and perhaps the ditch company to allow that to be installed. I don't
Well, we can certainly take a look, and I'm sure Paul Black will also take a look to see if there's one. But if there's not, we will require that as part of this development.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
No, we'll revisit this in a minute here on the agenda. Okay. All right, since we have Shaq Powers in the room, we're going to move on to our direction regarding carrier neutral location.
So I also have Doug Seacat from Deeply Digital Clear Networks that's also on Zoom as well.
Okay. Katie, do you want to kick this one off before?
Yes. Well, we have a beautiful building, a CNL, carrier neutral location is what they call a CNL. And at the time that we applied for this grant, Marion from Southwest COG was basically going to work with the town to do the management of the CNL. Of course, they were also doing our fiber CNL at the same time. And now, when we knew that Durango or La Plata County in Durango had a CNL, we wanted to see their agreement so we understood what that looked like. But it's kind of, we're looking for your direction of who would manage that. Town Attorney Goldman also could have some input on that as well. He's had that documents for a while. And certainly suggested that we go back to our DOLA rep and make sure that anything we do would pass the DOLA's test as far as the grant as well.
You're good at this because this is out of our pay grade, a lot of us. But
Well, actually, I thought we were going to talk about mitigating beer. So I don't know what that was about.
I sit in a lot of meetings with Shaq. Let me just tell you this. He's got some good comic relief most of the time.
Yeah, so the carrier neutral locations, the idea is to be carrier neutral. There are some things that need to be managed within those locations, such as cross connections, mapping out, if a carrier is in a rack, an internet service provider is in one of the racks that you've installed and they are having fiber that goes out to different long-haul carriers. And I haven't seen your CNL, and I don't know where the fiber runs to, but say they want to have connections to more than one long-haul provider, then somebody needs to go out into that manhole, make those splices, map out which fibers are connected to where. Otherwise, a couple of years down the road, it becomes a real bird's nest trying to figure out what goes where. And so this happened prior to my time with the Region 9 and the Southwest COG. So I'm just coming into the loop with it. Doug and Deeply Digital built the La Plata County CNL that's in Durango too, that apparently Miriam applied for, that I'm inheriting over there. And they've done a great job with building it, done really good work for us. We're looking at the ways we're going to manage that. When I spoke to Doug about getting him a lease to put a contract in for Clear Networks to have rack space in our CNL, he asked the question if it was going to be the same process for Bayfield. I said, I don't know, I'll reach out to Katie. And we didn't know, so we're starting those conversations. I think for the DOLA test, what DOLA, who gave the grant, is going to want to see is that it truly is carrier neutral and that one internet service provider, such as Clear Networks, doesn't get a leg up above another provider. I don't even know who else is in Bayfield. But that being said, I think that could all be worked out in contract language. If you chose to have Clear Networks, Deeply Digital do the management for it, I think that would be fine. I also think that there are private third companies that do some CNL work that wouldn't have a dog in the ISP fight. Maybe Echo IT Consulting from the
Town of Pagosa Springs, or perhaps 2210 who works out of Cortez, and there may be others as well. So I just wanted to bring it to the board, start getting some feedback, maybe wanting to know how we could partner together, work together, what your ideas were. And I'm glad that Doug's on the call too, because I'm sure being an expert in the field, he can provide some feedback. But basically it comes down to who's going to be making connections, who's going to be mapping those and keeping track of that, and making sure that the internet service providers that want to co-locate in the data center are going to have equal opportunity and have an equal understanding of the procedures. And you are either also enlightened, you don't need to ask anything, because so confuse you on what it is.
I mean,
Kind of somewhere in between the two.
yeah.
I'm enlightened but
I mean,
confused.
we just talked about our, all of our department heads are overworked and underpaid here, but
Right.
I worry about the workload that this puts on any of our staff. I mean,
I
that's
do
my
too.
number one concern. How detailed is this? How,
So, I mean, I don't know how detailed it would be. I don't even know how many internet service providers are in Bayfield. If it's 3 or 4 and they're making a couple of connections, it maybe it's not gonna be a ton of work. But like, and Doug, can you hear what I'm saying?
He's over
oh,
on her
he's gonna be on
computer.
Katie's.
We can't see him.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. Is all of the fiber connected to one main line in a handhole and then coming into the CNL, or do splices need to be made outside of the CNL as well?
So there's a community handhole, 2 of them on the outside, and the idea would be for ISPs to build to the community handhole and pull inside. So it's a little different than Durango. They would hit that community handhole and then bring their fiber all the way into the building.
So when
Okay.
those ISPs
Terminated
hit that handhole,
inside.
they would need to make splices, and I don't know what the town of Bayfield's IT capacity is. I don't know if they have the staff and or the equipment to make splices.
No.
Nope.
That's a negative.
So, in that case, you'd either want to contract with a third party like DB Tech, or to have somebody like Deeply Digital that has the equipment and can do it and can map it out properly.
Good. Do you want me to say a couple things, Jeff?
Yeah, please jump in.
So there's a few things. I would say that there's probably very little splicing that the town would need to do. Really, the things that happen frequently are like needing access to the doors. So anytime, an ISP gets a new employee, they're asking, can this employee get ISP, access to the door? And then usually they're asking where on the racks they need to put their equipment. So there's multiple racks inside of that room, and if I wanted to be in that room, I'm going to say which rack can I be on, or what space do I get to lease. As far as the splicing, that should be up to the ISP for the most part. We would either do it ourselves or hire if we could do that. Currently, all the fiber in town is owned, by others. So really, all you guys own is the building, and you've created a space for people to build to. So they're going to build their own fiber to that space. Over time, you'll have multiple vendors coming in there, but really, they should be responsible for their fiber. So the main things is really the coordination of access and the location of where stuff should go. Sometimes the air conditioning breaks and someone needs to like you'll get an alert. We would call and say, hey, why is that the air conditioning, the heat is, getting hot from there, what's going on? And so we need to run down and figure that out. Or it doesn't have a generator now, but the plan was for it to have a generator someday. The generator needs maintained, it's getting cycled and oil and everything. So those are one of the main functions, I think, of the CML actually.
So I'm just going to apologize in advance. For some reason, our Zoom is going to time out here in about 3 minutes. So if we lose you, our apologies. I don't know what's going on, but we've had some things going on here, so.
You can try and get back in, because
Well,
I'll log in again.
Okay.
Jack knows what we do for the most part. I guess real quick, get lost. We're happy to help in any way. We've done a number of these and helped with, like Region 10, CNOs. I think, like Shaq was saying, it's good to have a third party. We do have two companies, DP Digital and Clear Networks. It would be DP Digital that's managing this, not Clear Networks. Clear Networks is the ISP that wants to use the services of the CNO. Obviously, in this case, I personally own both of them, so it's a sister company, but we do function and work as an independent company that would take care of stuff. But if there's someone else down there that's willing to do it, like, Eric or anybody, we're not doing it. That's not part of our business. We just are happy to do it and have a lot of experience and would be happy to even help until you've, got you on your feet or whatever we need to do. But if you want us to be a part of it in some way, we're happy to, or we're happy to hand over whatever we've built to anybody else that's willing to do it.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then to also keep you out of legal trouble, I don't know what your procurement policy says if you're gonna have a third company do it, if you would need to put out a request for proposals or bids or anything like that. I defer that to your town manager and your town attorney, but just things that you need to consider before you open it up.
I mean, the questions we're being asked tonight is who should manage it, and should there be a lease amount? I mean, do you have some,
I have
this structure happens other places, other municipalities?
Yes, and we're currently, we being Region 9, are working with our broadband team leads to try and put together some standard operating procedures for all of these CNLs that are going in across the region. I did email to Katie the contracts that we have with both with La Plata County and with the one provider who's going in there at this point, so she has access to that. What's unique to a carrier-neutral location compared to a data center is a carrier-neutral location. What we're doing is we're putting the ISPs into the racks. ISP is Internet Service Provider. I don't know if I cleared that acronym up or not. And they will have their racks, and they'll be able to tie into their own fiber, to other people's fiber in the vault. And they just get charged for the rack space. And if they cross-connect to each other, we want to map it out but not charge. For-profit data center that's not built with public dollars, in addition to charging the $500, $600, $700 a month for rack space, would also charge for each cross-connect in the data center. And so, for example, if I'll just use Clear Networks, for example, if they're the ISP and they come in and they want to they have their own fiber going out and they're locating in the rack and they're being charged $500 for that rack per month, but then they also want it to cross-connect to CenturyLink or to Netflix or to some other long-haul fiber provider. Traditional data center would charge like $200 per month for that cross connection, which is really kind of a farce that's then passed on to the consumer, because once you plug into the switch port here and plug into the other server there, that's the end of the work, and data centers are charging $200 a month for those connections. And so part of the idea of making the carrier neutral locations is to truly make them neutral and to waive all those cross connection fees that just end up getting passed on to your residents and costing money.
And so, I mean, I guess, is that the answer, is we could waive that lease agreement to keep it affordable for, I mean.
No, generally what you have is you have a lease agreement, but there's $1 a year or some
Oh,
nominal
okay.
amount that is charged.
Gotcha.
There's still a full-on
An
lease
agreement.
that's generally used to manage the facility. And from what I'm hearing, it sounds like that's exactly what is happening when you have the CNL facility. You have premises, and it would be the premises that the town of Bayfield, if it chose to manage it would be managing just the premises, that the technical folks would be handling their own technology and so forth, and deal with a lot of the things that splicing and so forth. The question I really had, and it was somewhat answered earlier, is really because we were the grantee, and there are additional future obligations or obligations that perhaps have not been completed, does DOLA require that we maintain and manage the premises? And that has yet to be answered.
Okay.
So I think most of the DOLA grants, I haven't looked at yours individually, will require that you own it for at least 10 years. I don't think there's any stipulations about management. But the $1 lease, that's what Region 9 is paying to La Plata County. You do have to charge your internet service providers for the rack space because they're consuming power and heating, ventilation, air conditioning, that kind of thing. So you have to cover your costs on that. What we're trying to get away from is all the monthly recurring cross-connect fees.
Hey, Shaq.
Yes, sir.
I'm back, and I guess I was gonna point out one thing with the DOLA grant. It came with some IRUs to the anchor institutions. So I don't know if, as you're speaking DOLA, if we're talking just about managing the building, that's one thing, but you actually have, I think with the DOLA grant, you have to provide open access to those anchors still. So the town does have some fiber that's throughout town that's on our fibers and IRU. We would maintain it. Part of that IRU is that we have to fix it, but the DOLA grant requires that that fiber stays open access for anybody to utilize. So that is out throughout the town.
And so if you're not familiar with the vernacular, the anchor institutions are your public entities. So the town, the county, the libraries, the schools. And I haven't seen your contract, so I don't know what those provisions are.
Okay, and so if we, I'm trying to just understand the workload of this
Right.
managing. It sounds to me that occasionally, maybe Jeremy would have to go in and check out an air conditioner or something that's down. We're not splicing, we're not digging holes, we're not, if we manage it. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Manage the building.
I'm
Right. But,
I'm kind of getting the same thing. Like we're just taking care of the building and the equipment to
The facility management.
Yes, and
Yeah.
you have to know what's located where in the facility and where those cross connections are being made so that it doesn't end up being a bird's nest. I know.
Yeah, nobody,
Region 10 is spending a significant amount of money right now trying to figure out where some of their predecessors at these different locations that they have, where things are live and where things are dark and what towns are connected to where, so.
as staff, we can't even tell you what the bird's nest is in our own server room here at Town Hall. So
Right, that might
that's
be
the CNL.
a good example.
Yeah.
so you don't from the beginning label everything and work from there.
Well, you should.
You should.
Well, I'm just saying, like,
Doesn't mean it
they're
happened
saying
that
it's
way.
not possible. Is it possible
It
that
is
we can
possible to
self-manage or
label
not
everything from the beginning, and
maintain it?
it needs to also be in spreadsheets and, if you have, I think Deeply Digital has a software that they use so that they can see, something going into this switch goes out to these pairs of fibers that's then running down to Durango and then hitting the tri-state line and going up to Grand Junction and then out to Denver.
and, I mean, in Region 9 is doing that, they're already doing this. So if we,
Region 9 is on the learning curve.
Okay.
Doing this.
You think you're on the learning curve.
That's what I'm
Right?
saying. I mean,
Learning
I would like to find a solution that requires the least amount of involvement for our staff and that's not costing us money. That's,
Yeah, and I don't know that the town board needs to take a vote tonight. I would tell you, your three options that you could, research would be either figuring out a way to do it yourself, maybe 4 ways. Working with, someone like Doug at Deeply Digital and having them do it for you, or if you're concerned about, you know, an ISP interest, working with a third-party, private person such as Eric Kittle from Echo IT or 2210 or maybe DB Tech. There's different ones that could do it for you. If you were gonna ask it of Region 9, we'd have to sit down with Laura and see what she's okay committing to and those resources. And I definitely didn't come with any kind of prepared cost analysis or anything like that.
yeah, I mean.
But I think those are your options.
And I also think we have a little bit of a time crunch factor here. I mean, I think doesn't Clear Networks, Deeply Digital want to
They
get
sent
going?
me their rack set up, and I'm like, well, this is great, but I can't tell you what I'm going to do with it.
Well, I understand the packet now better.
Yeah.
There you go, Tom's gonna do it.
Just mapping.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of stumped at the direction. I think, you know, Attorney Goldman had a point there. He said there's some legal stuff he wants to check in on and make sure that we're covered there with DOLA. I mean, I'm completely enlightened. I know way more about this than I did when I first read this packet, so I appreciate you coming out here for this meeting.
Yeah, you know, when I took the job at Region 9, I didn't know I was gonna be doing anything with CNL, so surprised.
So, I mean, I don't know, Katie, I would like to know what other municipalities are doing about that lease.
Yeah,
I
we need
mean, to
more
me, I
information,
don't want to
too.
pass anything on. I want to
Yep.
keep,
So I think what I have explore is self, working with Deeply Digital, third party, or Region 9. So maybe a little more exploration on those 4 and kind of come back with a recommendation versus a toss-up.
Right.
and
Yeah.
you know, my next question is does this affect them launching and getting, I mean, Doug's on the ribbon cutting I'm supposed to be doing on the 16th or whatever. You know, I know there are people desperate to get hooked up and get this going in their houses. 'Cause
Especially in the
it's-
north part of town.
Yeah, it is so frustrating. So,
And I would say to that there would be nothing wrong with letting Deeply Digital get everything going, and if the town decides for whatever reason they want to go with a third party or do it themselves for, you know, them, whoever ends up managing it, to work with Deeply Digital to just get an understanding of what's there. I don't see any reason to delay lighting the internet.
okay.
No.
And Doug, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was gonna say that Deeply Digital and Clear Networks will help you guys. You know, if something breaks right now, we're gonna take care of it. I mean, we just built it. I think the biggest thing is taking good records. So like that Visio diagram that we sent Katie, like if we do anything, we would update that. We need to just make sure that we keep doing good updates. That's what's happened in the past is if 2 or 3 ISPs are coming in and you just say, all you guys figured out on your own, it does become a mess. So I would just say that if someone else comes in the next few weeks and wants to, you know, put their equipment in the racks as well, that we just all coordinate. And at this point, it should, you know, maybe this is the group. Like we've talked to Shaq and Katie and say, you know, like we sent what we wanted. Here's the 2 racks we want, and we laid it out. The next company that comes in, you know, in a month and says it, we just need to ask, hey, can you provide what you want on that rack? And then if it fits there, it's fine. So I don't think, it doesn't have to get out of hand too quickly as long as, you know, if someone else comes in the next few weeks and asks for permission, you would just say, show us what you want, and I can help with that. Shaq could look at it. And then as far as the, you know, the maintenance side of it, I'm not gonna charge you if something breaks in the next few weeks or months.
You heard that, it's on the record.
We
right
said
there.
we would take care of it for them.
You got lots of
But,
witnesses
you
on
know,
that one.
the air conditioner, we'll go over there and take care of it, so anyway, I would say we have a little bit of time. I agree with Shaq, I would love to not slow this up because of this. I mean, this is, I think you have some time to figure it out, and we'll help you until that, until you get it figured out.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you. I mean, is the board
Yeah.
comfortable with that?
I'm
With-
comfortable with it.
And then we have a list of concerns and we'll
Yep.
circle back on that.
Awesome. Is that all the
Do
direction?
you have
we
any other
needed?
questions for Shaq while he's here?
If you want to go to the deer mitigation meeting, that'll be in 2 weeks.
Are they gonna open the dispensaries for the deer at that time?
They're already eating it out in the fields now. It's growing in everyone's yard.
We can dispense them out of the CNO.
They hit it before the fall harvest. They're stoked for winter.
Oh, my gosh.
That's why there's so many dead ones along the road.
Thank you, Shaq. Thank you, Doug. I think we have some direction for staff.
New meaning to deer in headlights.
And real quick, I want to add one thing, I guess. I mean, cost is really a concern of ours. I mean, that's the whole reason we're trying to buy into, you know, the county CNO. We could have obviously built our own. We wanted to be part of the county, I mean, the community's, you know, plan here. But I want to keep stuff at a, you know, control cost. And so I think we do have some ideas of how to help with that. And I can talk to Katie. I mean, those 3 or 4 options that Shaq laid out are perfect. Those are good options. I think each one of them has some pros and cons. So, however, you know, I can talk to Katie afterwards and kind of explain what we see. But I think when you guys do make a decision, I really, I guess, encourage you to at least think somewhat of what it's going to cost, because the additional cost that you guys put on this is just, we have to pass that on, or somehow that, you know, goes into the system. And we really want to try to keep the cost as affordable as possible too.
I agree. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. All right. Thanks for sticking around for all of that.
It was fun. You guys know how to have a good time.
Oh, you can stick around for the next one.
Everything's better in Bayfield.
All right.
You know, I think I heard my mother calling.
All right, we're going to move on. Tom, you voluntarily recused yourself from this section?
I will say before I leave that I was there when the sewer pipe was put in and when the ditch was piped. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I mean, I was around for the whole thing. I staked it all.
Okay.
So if there's any questions on that end of it.
Okay. Yeah, we got to get a comfy lounge chair out there for Tom.
Nothing wrong with a little nap.
Okay. Katie, is this your, Nicole, you want to kick this off? This is you?
I can start a little bit. Just, I wanted to make sure that this was on your agenda, to make sure that, that you will accept this easement. It is at the developer's cost. But the last thing we wanted is to go through this whole process for paying for engineers and obviously a crossing agreement and everything else, and then have it come back to you and say, well, I don't think we really want that. So this would be your final decision to accept it. And then everything else after that would be up to the developer to pay. And of course, before the site was developed, we'd make sure all of that was paid for, just like your finance director explained to you.
One of my concerns is that we might be a little premature in that we don't have any document before us. We don't have any easement language. We have no
Yeah.
contract. It's unclear to me who specifically the grantors are, whether it's both landowners, one landowner, and so forth. So I'm not sure you have enough before you to really make a final decision right now. You can make a decision in principle that you might accept an easement, but I would caution you from making a final decision.
Well, you know, somebody said something that it was the easiest and least expensive option.
Oh,
Does that mean it's the best option? Was there?
So the only
something
other option
else?
is to go basically down 501. And I And I forget what the estimate costs were to do sewer.
I don't know if they did, if we ever saw that, but yeah, just a little, kind of a little background. The school, you know, originally, we had said, so sewer is here in Dove Ranch and 501. And so the option was, and the church originally wanted sewer, and the school was originally gonna be located up in this
Right.
more northern piece, and so they were looking at bringing the sewer up through the driveway and up this location. As they started looking at topography, the school's moving further south onto the property, to make that work, and so they want to make this connection, and what the cities, or the town's always said to the school is, we're not gonna require that, even though they found there's a main there. You know, the documents for Dove Ranch do not show that, seems like it was put in, didn't go through the proper channels because it didn't even, the easements weren't granted to the town, but it is a main, it's not a service line. So it is something the town would normally maintain. Service lines are private, it's a large 8-inch main. And so, but the easements were not in place, nothing was put in place there. And even when Jeremy went out on the site, the manhole is sitting there, like it was supposed to someday be installed and never was installed, so it's just kind of laying there by where the pipe is capped. And so, you know, clearly they did, it's a main and they were doing it for development there, but they probably just put it in last minute and didn't really talk to the town. So my guess is we don't have any engineering plans on it. There might be some staking and maybe a ditch agreement, we don't know, we'll have to dig into that. But I can't find anything, nor again, were the easements given to the town. And so, you know, what the town's told the school and the property owners is, we're not gonna require this. We're not gonna tell the property owners, you have to give us an easement. And so at first it was the school and the property owners working back and forth, and then the property owner's attorney had come to us and said, well, so we went to them actually and said, hey, it's a main. All right, would you be more comfortable if the town took ownership of the main versus you trying to work out an easement with the school? We maintain that main up to that manhole that would be located on the school's property, and then the school would tie into that manhole with their service lines. And, you know, the property owner and the attorney said, yeah, we would feel more comfortable if the town took this over. And so that's where we're at today. If the main's existing, so the town's willing to, the staff is willing to look at it, bring it to you, say, is it something that we want to take over? And if so, then we'll spend all the money with our engineers, because we're gonna have our engineers do the easement, they're gonna do the survey work. I'm sure we're gonna have them take a look at the camera, and if we need to camera it again to make sure it's up high, it's in a situation that we would accept, the pipe. And so there's a lot of things we want our engineers to do, but it's not on our bill, it would be on the applicant's bill, and we've already asked them, and they have responded in writing that they are willing to pay for our engineers to do that work. So maybe going back to what Councilor Goldman is saying is, we at least get the initial, like, we want us to have our engineers do this work and start this process. I think the school's gonna want some level of sureties that they're spending this money and, you know, the easements are gonna happen, so I don't know how all that's gonna work, but we don't wanna spend all the money just for the board to say, no, we're not gonna accept this. And Jeremy may wanna weigh in on his comfort level with accepting something like this.
Well, by using this connection, you would be able to maintain gravity flow for the sewer pipe, which is always beneficial for the collection system. By rerouting the sewer to a different portion, they would end up either having to operate a private lift station. If this doesn't plan on developing with houses, you wouldn't have a public lift station, so they would actually have to be pumping sewage up. So the connection makes sense as far as for operation of the town utility.
And again, it's a main, so we would be taking on mains throughout the community. It's not unique. The only uniqueness part of this is we didn't know it was there. And it was not given to us when it was put in.
It's another 200 feet of pipe that we would maintain with our jet routing schedule.
And it's in good condition, so, like what you said, it hasn't been used, good condition.
Our initial investigation is that, you know, we may want to confirm that
Uh-huh.
since our engineers will be out there.
Yeah.
Nicole, there's nothing coming off of Dove Ranch Road, like off of that little tangent that goes to the south side, that road right there? Yep.
It's uphill again.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's where Jeremy says they would need to have a lift station to
Okay.
come uphill. Topography in here.
And all of the construction is happening in that field. It's not, we're not tearing up any
No,
Any
it's
access.
there. So the plan
Mhm.
would not be to have to put any more pipe. The plan would be to put in the manhole.
and then have
where
them
the
come to
pipe
that.
Comes up, and then the school would tie into that with their service.
Gotcha. So less,
So no initial digging is needed because the pipe's already in place for the main. Now, they'll still have to, the school will still have to do,
their own,
yeah.
their own
connections
connections.
to that.
And
yeah.
as,
But that's on their property and,
and as far as the integrity to the ditch and any discussion with the ditch, that's gonna be engineered. That will be discovered during the engineering process.
So again, the existing pipe is what it is. We'll work with the ditch if we need an agreement in place for that. The
we're not
school
touching the
is
ditch.
engineering their project, and so any trenching and anything that they're doing on their site, it has to be engineered.
so the
in their
school,
connection.
the school's the one that's good, you're gonna know whether or not,
Jeremy, but we shouldn't have to do much because the main's already there.
It's gonna have to be installed to current town standards. I mean,
The main or the service?
in all actuality, you're not gonna be able to put a manhole in the location that the pipe's terminated at this time. It's in too close a proximity to his yard, where he comes over his fence.
Okay.
So what you have to do is open up the end of the pipe, you'd have to come off with another stick of 8-inch service, get that pipe back into the school property, then create a manhole. You never want a service line tying into a manhole, so they need to tie it downstream. Give us an access point on the school property, and then we'd be able to maintain that with a sewer truck. So,
Gotcha.
I mean, worst case scenario, you might have a root cutter in on a jet rodder, but,
so there's,
odds are that you would have to dig up and replace this pipe going through a potential easement that might be provided to the town from the property owners are very small.
Jeremy?
so the concern was more the ditch and that being so close in proximity and us messing with anything in the ditch that could cause his property to be damaged. So I just wanna make sure, are we gonna have engineers on the part that we have to do to extend it?
The school would be the developer,
Or
and
is-
would provide us drawings of how that was, and we would have it reviewed by town
Okay.
engineer before it was installed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like any other type of development or utility installation.
Okay,
So Jeremy, we would not be doing that install. We would still have the school do that
Correct.
main extension.
okay,
But it's not, it wouldn't be as simple as trying to just put a manhole in there. I mean, there's some piping and stuff.
okay.
And Robert, if you have a question, I would just ask that you come speaking in the microphone so that we.
Yeah.
Let me finish real
Okay.
quick, and then I'll have Robert. So what the plan is, and it looks like we're gonna need, so our engineers have decided they wanted to do separate easements for the different properties versus one easement. I think the attorney originally was saying one easement for both properties, but our engineers prefer a separate easement with each property owner. So we'll need an easement with, the Gallegos, we'll need an easement with, Daryl's last name? Daryl Rogers, and we'll need an easement with the school and an agreement of some sort with the Los Pinos Ditch Company. And so I just wanted to kind of say there's gonna be multiple easements as part of this, project that the town would need granted to us, and then we would have to have that agreement with the ditch company. And then also the easements do get signed by the property owner, so I just wanna make sure if the board is good with us moving forward on this, ultimately, the property owners still have to sign the easement before we record it. So, there's that piece too.
Okay. So Jeremy and Nicole got to where I wanted to get to. And like the town attorney said, I haven't seen anything in writing. I haven't seen anything in writing from the school or anyone else, you know. We're not opposed to offering the easement to the town of Bayfield, you know. I can speak for Darryl Rogers as of right now that we will consider doing that, provided we get documentation, something in writing from somebody. We haven't seen anything in writing from anyone. Like Jeremy said, it's really close to the property line, so he made the statement I wanted to make, that we need to move it a little bit. And Nicole's right on the money as where it needs to be, and sure the ditch breaks, or it gets jammed up by the school, who's gonna pay for this? And am I gonna be out, and Darryl Rogers gonna be out all the way to that manhole, because that's where the two houses hook up? Who's gonna pay for that? Who's gonna fix that? Or are we gonna have to have months and months of no sewer line because nobody wants to pay?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we have the 8-inch and we take the easement, that's us taking the responsibility for the sewer line. Is that correct?
Right. Can I?
Yep.
So, yeah, if we give you guys the easement, it'll be from the manhole cover to here, that'll be the town of Bayfield. If anything happens upstream, who's gonna be responsible for that? And does the school have, the private school have insurance to cover something that's gonna affect all of us? Is that?
When you say an upstream, are you talking about the ditch or are you talking about the sewer line? Because there's, okay. So we're responsible for the nine,
Responsible for the
main,
Take this
right.
easement over, we would maintain that main in perpetuity.
And then just like any homeowner, you're responsible for your own sewer line that goes to the main. So they would be the school responsible for their sewer line to the main.
Okay, and then of course they have to have insurance to cover all that.
Right, yeah.
And if the ditch gives way for structural integrity, whatever, does that fall on the town of Bayfield, or does that stuff fall on Los Pinos ditch?
It's, if the school is actually doing that extension, they're gonna engineer it, their contractors would be the ones to do that. So it would fall on them if something happened during that installation to extend the main.
Okay, and then the town of Bayfield, it would be responsible to make sure that they hire or they have licensed contractors to do that.
So we don't license in Colorado contractors, but we do, our engineers review their engineers' plans to make sure that they meet our code requirements.
Okay, and they do have to be licensed.
Yes.
So is part of it what you're asking, is there some oversight, maybe an engineer's oversight? I mean, you know, that's a cost to the developer, but we just need to make sure I understand that.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to ask, is there some oversight to make sure it's done correctly?
Sure.
So we don't have to revisit this two or
Yeah.
three times.
I hear you.
And we do inspect, so once they their contractor does the install based on their engineering plans that we've approved, then we do go out there and do the inspections to make sure they were done to plan as well.
Gotcha, okay. And then so as homeowners, we're just now waiting for the town attorney and whoever else needs to get those documents proposing this is how we're gonna take it over.
If the board wants us to continue to move forward on this, then we'll have our engineers draft up those documents and everybody will have a chance to look at them, and make sure that they meet all of our needs, before, and then, like I said, usually the owners would sign them, so in this case, we have that, 3 owners signing it, plus, 10 minutes ago, plus the.
Sorry.
The ditch company and whatever agreements that we need to come up with.
Okay, it's just my concern, I haven't seen anything in writing.
Right.
We haven't either. And so we're just deciding whether or not we want to even
Okay.
This is not how we.
look at it.
Yeah, it isn't.
When we're gonna do an easement, there's nothing in the ground, we do the easement first, and then the construction happens. In this case, it's after the fact, so it's a little bit different than what we normally. And again, we wanna make sure that the board's willing to do it before we spend essentially the school's money to do the easements.
Right. I just wanted to be clear on it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you guys do have to extend that main, I'm not familiar how close the end of the pipe is to the Los Pinos. I've got to look at the location and all.
A few feet.
About 5.
Most likely, the ditch is gonna require that any kind of excavation is gonna be done on off-season.
Right.
So just keep that in mind for the developer, you know, if you guys wanna break ground in April this next year, then
Better
that's
hurry.
not done, you might have to wait a whole season of irrigation for that, so just to.
Yeah, that's good.
Good to know.
Good to know.
And that was Paul Black for the record.
Yeah, Jeremiah Ackerman again. I was amiss last time in not thanking you, Robert, and also Daryl for working with us on this, and also all of you for considering this. But yeah,
manhole, the location of the manhole is totally up to recommendation, Jeremy, and wherever is good with, you, Robert. We're wanting to keep that length of pipe, as short as possible, just for, maintenance purposes and minimize the town's responsibility going forward. So, the school, would certainly maintain the service line, just like every line's maintained to the house by the homeowner. And everything upstream, of that manhole in the outer court there, doesn't impact the mains or the service lines of the homes there. The service lines connect from those homes downstream of that manhole. And so, to your point, Robert, the school, school's usage, even if we had a backup in our line or in that 8-inch line, it should not impact the homes down below. Any other?
Thank you. Do you need a motion or do you need just direction on this?
Well, I think Town Attorney Goldman made a good point. This in principle, I think that, but we want to also make sure that the developer knows that there would be some acceptance later on, so that there's not spending a lot of money and then and you decide not to accept it.
Right.
So I think a motion would be appropriate with regards to direction to move forward with engineering and specs with regards to an easement.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good with moving forward. The findings, I think, covered those questions. I don't know if there were any conditions that we need to add. I think it was covered in, I mean, I think that's all speculative stuff, so.
I mean,
Come back for a final decision from the board, then there may be some conditions.
Okay.
I did that, once we know more, again, our engineers are just getting out there to investigate, so we don't even know the whole story
Yep.
until we get that.
I will say, I mean, on the deed easement language, I understand where the homeowners are coming from. There won't be protective language in a deed for an easement. So that, I was going to raise that question. I understand where you're coming from as a homeowner, but from an easement, standard deed language doesn't cover you from an insurance stance. So I don't want to add fuel to this, but is there a secondary option in case we can't all agree to terms? Because I'm a little hesitant, because once a deed language comes, we're completely hinging on 2 homeowners, not just one, for this easement language agreement. So that's the first step. If we can't breach that, then what is the secondary option?
I will say, our engineers, I mean, they've done a few easements for us, they're gonna use standard easement language, for this, cause I mean, it's existing, so that's just the unique part of it, but just how we maintain all our other mains is how we're going to do this. I don't think we're doing anything special beyond that, so it's gonna be our standard easement language, and part of what they're doing is the survey work to create those easements.
So we do have an ordinance that that controls our wastewater and sewer easement. So I mean, yes, there's not necessarily specifics on that actual sewer main. That's what's managed by our ordinance.
That's, I'm kind of alluding to that with the homeowner.
And-
Just, it's not going to be in the deeded language.
Yeah,
It
and
won't reside in there.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, to add to your appropriate statements, is also a matter of governmental immunity right off the bat. So, the town of Bayfield has statutory immunity with regards to issues having to do with backups and such, subject to certain exceptions. So,
And
all those matters are in play.
And so the town does sign the amendment in our CIRSA. We sign up for the sewer backup and water damage as well. So we do have that insurance. There's no requirement that we sign up for that insurance. So just so you're aware of that, we did have quite a few backups on East Court when I first got here, and the insurance provided that, replace carpet and drywall and things like that. So, you know, something else that you may not be aware of that's in this budget that you just looked at.
I mean, any other discussion or questions?
I don't have a problem
I
with
guess
it.
I just have, we're gonna move forward now with the engineering, even though we don't have anything in writing from the school at this moment.
So the school gave us in writing that they would pay for our, because we said,
Okay.
we're not requiring this, there's other ways they can connect.
Mm-hmm.
This is the most ideal in terms of not needing a lift station, but it's not something we're gonna force these homeowners to give an easement. We're not gonna do that. So what we,
So you got them to.
But what
gonna pay
But
for
they
the-
said in the letter
They're gonna
they
pay
pay
for
for
the
it.
engineering.
told us how much it was gonna cost.
Mm-hmm,
I sent that to the school.
mm-hmm.
Jeremiah, in his email, responded saying, yes, we agree to pay for that. So I have that in writing.
Okay.
Okay.
from the school.
And I think the home,
We also have real quick, we have a development application still active for the school with a deposit in there as well.
Okay.
For their, rezone process that they started. So we do have some money in there. The school ends up saying, we're not paying for this. Well, we do still have some money in that account.
Okay.
and I think for the homeowners, you're looking for some peace of mind that all this digging is not going to affect the structural integrity of a ditch, or somebody's gonna put a shoddy pipe in that's gonna affect your property.
The
That-
pipe's already there.
That's the purpose. There
Yeah.
will be engineered set of plans and then a second set of engineering eyes on it, as well as staff. So that part doesn't worry me as much. It was just connecting A to B to me. So I have faith that the process works, that there's enough eyes looking to protect you.
And,
on
and
that.
when you sign that agreement, that's your decision to make that, whether or not you feel that the engineers are,
Yeah, and like-
did their
like
due
we were talking with
diligence.
Nicole.
Yeah.
Nicole's been really helpful with this, you know, and she let us know that they do have other options. This is the most cost effective for them, and I get that, you know. And once we see something in writing, you know, we can make our decision.
Mhm.
Darrell Rogers, who's the person that owns the other house, me and him have talked, and we're both in agreement that if we can see that there's coverages for us, and we're not gonna be holding the proverbial stick after everything's said and done, that we're definitely gonna consider this. We're not gonna go through all the steps and then say, no, we'll consider it. You know, we are giving our word that we will consider everything. You know, and it's based off what I've heard from the attorney today, what I've heard from Paul, and what I've heard from Nicole throughout this process.
And Mr. Guy does have an attorney that I've talked to as well, and that's what she's requested, is they wanna see the easement language, but we don't have it yet.
Right.
Yeah, we need to,
Right.
move forward on
And
this
we
to
need
have
the
that.
engineering,
Yeah, for anybody
nor
to
do that.
review.
Okay, I think we're beating a dead stick.
Yeah, I know. It's late.
It's too late.
No,
Sorry about that.
we're getting through this. It's good.
So, alternative action A, is that includes the findings
Those
and
findings,
allows
yeah.
us to proceed. Anybody else want to say anything?
I'd also like to just add, if we can amend this, because at the time of this, I just talked about the easements, but I also like to add maybe after sewer main easements and those PNOS agreements, and authorize easement recordings, transferring easements, and we may want to amend that too, Mr. Goldman, and say, approve. Want to help me out?
In
Well,
principle.
I don't like alternative action A at all, because again, we don't have easements.
True.
There are no easements. We're
I
not-
feel like all we just need is direction.
Yeah, direction would just be fine at this point, because.
So do you need a motion to say we're directing, or can we just say we're
It's
directing?
inappropriate, because you don't have the information
Right.
before you.
So but you don't need a motion to have direction? Or
No,
can
you
we just, okay, so,
But you should all,
yeah.
each one of you should weigh in as to what direction you're
Right.
okay with.
I'll
If
start.
you're all in agreement,
So I'm okay with going ahead and trying to do the easement and getting the, I can't think of the word today.
Genius.
Town staff to work with our engineer
engineers,
in
and
order
have
to-
the engineers and work with
in
the
order to move
engineers
forward
to
on
move forward
this.
on this. Thank you. That's,
All right.
that's
So
my,
it's not a motion, it's direction, and then
Direct-
this will come
that's
back.
my feeling.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to say what you
Oh,
want?
move forward.
Move forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Next.
It's been a long day.
Oh, well, yeah.
Tom!
Tom back. He's probably like, I needed that comfy chair.
Thank
Sure,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate you being, we need to hear it, so. Thank
See
you,
you,
Paul. I know, I was like. All right, we're getting there, guys.
I want to go home and put an ice pack on my back.
Sorry, Tom. We're back. We're on to Resolution 590, the Energy Performance Contract.
So this, project we brought to you last month on October 17th, where we had Ashley, I always say her name wrong, Ashley B. In attendance or on Zoom, and just walk through what the energy performance contracting is. The next step would be to get into a memorandum of understanding with the state energy office. That again does not tie us into the process, but we started that MOU, and then once we go under contract with the energy service company, then, and they start the investment grade audit, then we're starting in that process. Now, again, we can get the audit back, decide we don't wanna do anything, and then we have to pay for that audit, upfront if we decide to move forward, and even if we move forward with one building. So I think there was a question of, what if we get the audit back and the only building worth doing thing is town hall? Well, we can move forward with town hall, and then that audit does get put into the energy performance contract, so we don't have to pay the $20,000.
Oh, good.
It'll be rolled into what we do for town hall. So if we only have one facility that we can move forward with, we still can roll that audit into the energy performance contract piece of it. So this is a resolution. If you're inclined to approve the resolution, what it would do is we would go through that memorandum of understanding. We would sole source with McKinstry because the state's already vetted them. And they're one of the energy service companies. And we would start the investment audit for our facilities. And then it would also give town manager Sickles the ability to sign those documents. So that's what this resolution spells out. The town attorney has reviewed it, as well as myself and the town manager.
Well, I think anywhere we can try to save a buck, I mean, this would save us money in the long run if we are able to improve our energy costs.
So it was on the 2023 goals. What happened to it that we didn't do it this year?
We are trying to do this.
Wait,
Yeah, that's what the resolution is, we're starting it this year. If we agree to this, then we started it in '23.
and it's just for the town hall and the senior center?
No, it's for all of our facilities.
All town buildings.
Okay.
And like I said, they'll look at things like boilers, they'll look at windows, they'll look at insulation, they'll look at roofs, solar. And they'll even look at, we talked about our baseball lights. and
Yeah,
see
those
if
are
there's
so
a more
expensive,
efficient
right?
Source that we can use for our fields and things. So they'll take a look at all of our own facilities.
And then the project they did in Durango, it was a $5 million
I
project,
can't tell you what happened at the end.
and it was, so they got a matching grant?
Every facility at Durango owned as well, then I left after that process, and Durango paused that for a while. So I couldn't give you specifics on what they ended up with in terms of what they're doing in Durango.
Okay, I thought I saw like 2 million on the,
You did.
on the sheet
You
that she
did on
had.
one of
But
the-
it was a $5 million
Mhm.
grant that they got,
Yeah,
so
something
it was a
like that.
matching of some
There
sort.
are a lot of grants out there,
Okay,
or different funding ways they contact.
okay.
Any other questions or comments? I would entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 590.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Hartz,
No.
Trustee Moreland,
Yes.
Trustee Wolf,
Yes.
Trustee Ah,
Nay.
and Mayor Tarkington.
Yes. All right, everybody, thanks for hanging in. We've got our dates of interest there. I'm not gonna sit and go through this discussion tonight because we're missing 2 board members, but I'll have Katie send out an email about our holiday schedule. We may be looking at canceling a meeting around the Christmas holiday because we know a lot of people go out of town. So we'll send that out for discussion. So we don't have to talk about it tonight because it's already late. And so we gotta be
I'm
back
okay
here in the
with
morning.
that.
So I will
And-
go ahead
and
and
if the
adjourn this
time
meeting.
cha-
It's 9:35.
And with the time change, it's like, feels like 10:30 right now. I'm like,
Yeah, it is.
My computer died right when she hit the gavel. It just
Oh,
died.
All right, I gotta go.
Needed to ask that really vague so that way attorney
Thing I hit save.
jump in and be like, we're not going to turn it.